Welcome okay. We just got it. Welcome everyone to our Community Board 8 Awards ceremony to honor our community volunteers and businesses. Tonight we will be presenting the Irv Latimer Community Service Awards and the Betty Campbell Most Valuable Merchant Awards. Irv is someone I knew for many, many years, and he devoted his life to civics. And he was a very long time member of this community board. So with that, I am happy to turn it over to Rob to begin the award ceremony.
Okay.
And welcome everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Chakosky. I'm actually just emceeing this for Lisa Daub, who is the chair of this committee. A little bit of background, the Irving Latimer Community Service Award acknowledges the many volunteer efforts of groups and individuals within the community. The community board believes that by recognizing our committed community volunteers, we can in some small way reward those deserving and maybe inspire others to follow their example. So the committee of the Irving Latimer Community Service Award has selected 4 recipients for this year's prize. The organizations and individuals have already been sent their awards or will be getting them soon, hand delivered in some cases. And some are, I think maybe all are present today. So there are 2 organizations and 2 individuals, and I'm going to introduce Julie Reyes to do the first organization.
Rob, and congratulations to all of the recipients. We honor the Student Veterans Organization at Manhattan College. The Student Veterans Organization at Manhattan College is a student group that facilitates the transition from military to civilian and academic post-college life. It's part of Manhattan College long commitments to veterans. The Student Veterans Organization volunteered their time in the fall of 2020 and then again in the spring of 2021 to clean, rake, and beautify Van Cortlandt's Park Memorial Grove section, as well as other parts of the area. And just a side note, the Van Cortlandt Parks Memorial Grove is a green tribute to the local service members. The Student Veterans Organization was nominated by the Parks and Recreations Committee of Community Board 8 in conjunction with the Special Committees on Veteran Services. The citation on the certificate reads as follows. For your volunteer initiatives with Manhattan College that show respect to local service members who lost their lives while serving our country, the organization's engagement in beautifying Van Cortlandt's Park Memorial Grove and other green spaces honor the service of others while enriching our community. Bronx Community Board 8 honors you for your contributions to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for reading that. So the next organization is the Van Cortlandt Track Club volunteers. And I want to welcome Betty and Rick. Since the summer of 2020, the VCTC club members have made up a large number of the Vital Volunteers cohort that beautifies the park. They've been participating in the Van Cortlandt Park's weekly Monday morning cleanups. Multiple members are also active in maintaining the forest in the park and working with the park staff. Special note should be made of Rick Bloomer, Betty Clark, Benny Varaz, and one VCTC volunteer, an 81-year-old Willie Kay, who shows up every Monday to clean up. The VCTC was nominated by the Parks and Rec Committee and supported by the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance, and Stephanie Ehrlich in particular wrote a long endorsement of you. The citation language reads, for your dedication to preserve Van Cortlandt Park as a place in nature for everyone to enjoy. The club's weekly volunteer cleanups and support to park staff help ensure the park's vast grounds remain beautiful. Bronx Community Board 8 honors you for your contributions to the community. So thank you. And now I'll introduce Lisa Daub, who is going to introduce the next winner, an individual this time.
Right. And I'm honored to highlight the good work of Ms. Manor Memon. Are you here? I think you are.
Yes, I'm here. Hi. How is everyone?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Phoebe Downs, on behalf of the Riverdale Neighborhood House Team Program, nominated you for the 2021 Community Service Award. In 2016, as a teen, you started as a health intern in the RNH Career and Youth and College Youth Internship Program, and quickly emerged as a leader in this very challenging program. the importance of ensuring that all students have the resources they need to succeed. And Ms. Memon, supported other students so they could also complete their program. Even now, as a pre-med college student, you continue to volunteer at RNH to support the health interns and to raise funds for good causes. And during the height of the pandemic, she pulled other young adults together to support homebound older adults, just to keep them checked in and connected. Your citation reads, for leading and inspiring youth in our community to achieve their goals and to serve others.
I wrote that freaking bimbo.
Your outstanding support to student health interns at Riverdale Neighborhood House and to homebound older adults nurtures the people in our community and beyond. Bronx Community Board 8 honors you for your contributions to our community. And good luck in school, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Marvin,
Marvin was supposed to be here to read this, but there's always phone trouble. So I think I'll just go ahead and read this nomination because I didn't see him in the boxes up there. So the last individual nominee is Yvette Connell for her work with the Jerome Parks Friends and Neighbors. She's over 90 years old. I can see that she's on the call. As you know, Jerome Parks and Friends and Neighbors is an all-volunteer park stewardship group formed in 2017 that cares for the flowers and the beds around Jerome Park Reservoir. And during 2020, Yvette Connell participated in 9 It's My Park volunteer days. I participated in 1 and it almost killed me. So congratulations. Helping to weed and plant shrubs, sometimes in blistering heat, even though she, again, is in her 90s. During 2020, she walked the reservoir weekly with a garbage bag and a grabber in hand, we're told, making the reservoir more beautiful for all. She was nominated by Deb Travis of Community Board 8 on behalf of Jerome Park Friends and Neighbors. And the citation language reads, for beautifying the community, for everyone to enjoy your weekly cleanups, walks around the reservoir and work with the Jerome Park's Friends and Neighbors, and on its It's My Parks days, improves quality of life and inspires others to volunteer and persevere. The Bronx Community Board 8 honors you for your contributions to our community. So thank you.
Marvin is here now. I don't know, Marvin, if you have anything to
Yeah, I'm
add.
sorry it
Good
took time for me to get on.
Okay,
So glad I got on.
okay, thank you,
Well,
Marvin.
Welcome to see you.
congratulations, everyone. Yeah.
And
Yes.
so there you go.
congratulations. If we were all together, we would have a group hug, a group shot, but maybe in the future. Now I would like to welcome Nick to introduce our Betty Campbell Most Valuable Merchants segment. And Nick?
Thank you, Madam
All right.
Chair. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to the Irving Latimer Award recipients this year. Well deserved. I am Nick Fazio, Chair of the Economic Development Committee for Bronx Community Board 8. I want to thank you all for coming to the Betty Campbell Adams Award ceremony to honor just a few of the many great entrepreneurs we have in CB8 and some of the most outstanding merchants in the entire borough of the Bronx. Congrats to our awardees, and that announcement will be made very quickly by Julia Gomez and Camelia Tepelis. But first, I want to thank Chair Spalter and the board staff, Kira, Tanya, for supporting the committee throughout this process and making the ceremony possible. I want to thank the Economic Development Committee for taking the time to review all the nominations and some great awardees. And I want to thank the committee for honoring the legacy of one of our community's most distinguished entrepreneurs in Betty Campbell Adams in naming the award after her. Although we still mourn her passing, it is uplifting to know that we have some amazing entrepreneurs following in her footsteps. And we are fortunate enough to have Betty's son, Brandon, here today, who's also the marketing director for Lloyd's Carrot Cake, which is the business that his parents built and Betty made famous, not just for the standards she established in terms of ethical business practices, but also in terms of her dedication to community service and exhibiting an entrepreneurial spirit of hard work and innovation. So Brandon, if you want to say a few words, please take it.
Yes, thanks, Nick. Yeah, I'll briefly jump in. Just number one, I wanted to thank you yourself, along with the community board, so many people on this call that have kind of pushed for the renaming of this award for the recipients, just in an effort to keep my mom's spirit and legacy alive. And we really appreciate it on behalf of myself, the business, and the rest of the family. We're really glad that, we could tie this around her memory. And we're really happy and excited about the recipients, just in terms of what they've done in the community and, tapping into the entrepreneurial spirit, which she was all about. And she had such strong relationships in the community. So I know she'd be really, really happy about this. And, congrats to all the prior recipients and all the future recipients and the award winners. And just thank you again for helping to keep my mom's legacy alive.
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you for those words. And also thank you for sharing your mom with this community for so many years. And she touched many, many people. So it is greatly appreciated. And we appreciate you and your blessing in us naming the award after her. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my colleague, fellow committee member, Julia Gomez, who will introduce our first honoree. Julia.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this direct because I tend to be a little wordy. Our first honoree is the Bronx Ale House. The Bronx Ale House opened in 2009, and at the time, it was the first and only craft beer bar or restaurant in the Bronx. They were opened by some veterans of the industry as well as former teachers. They have been committed to the community. They sponsor youth leagues. They have their anniversary event, which if you've never been, it's a great time, open to all. The local precinct stops by to support, and they now employ almost 50 local residents. They try to be a positive impact, and sorry, it's on a different screen. The award reads, "For your contribution to our community's economic growth, embodiment of the spirit of entrepreneurship, and demonstration of ethical business practices and social justice, Community Board 8 honors you for your service contributions to our community."
Beautiful, beautiful.
Congratulations. Thank you very much, Julia. And Camila, would you be so kind as to name the awardee for the second honoree this evening? Camila. Is Camila there?
No.
I saw.
Okay,
I
so
saw Camila.
Camila, if you're
Hello, do
there,
you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there
Yes.
you are. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So on behalf of the Community Board 8 Economic Development Committee, I am absolutely delighted to name the honorees of this year Betty Campbell Most Valuable Merchant Award to be Richard and Claudia Beroa from Claudie's Kitchen down on at 5981 Broadway. Claudie's Kitchen is a restaurant that opened in June 2020 in the middle of a global pandemic. They offer high quality, authentic Peruvian food with ingredients that are all fresh, natural, and locally sourced. This nomination is not really for their empanadas that were called by New York Times technically astute and delicious. It's not by their reference in the Michelin Guide that calls them a truly unique culinary retreat. All these are amazing, of course, but what moved me is really Claudie's Kitchen as a business, which is an example of drive, spirit of innovation, entrepreneurship, but also a business that is immigrantly owned and that really contributes to the community. Their support for local community and social justice, especially on the food vulnerability experienced by so many of our residents during COVID, has been remarkable. Claudie's Kitchen is a strong supporter of the community-driven Friendly Fridge initiative. For the fridge located on Broadway at 242nd Street, the fridge receives $7.99 cooked meals provided by Claudie's Kitchen for every meal purchased by customers. And Claudie's contribution to this project was featured on many media outlets, including News 12, Michelin, the New York Times, and many Eater New York, and many others. It is just a true example of how in Community Board 8, businesses found a very fruitful environment to start operations even in the middle of a pandemic. And again, I couldn't be more proud of the history and the performance of Claudie's Kitchen, represented here by Richard and Claudia. Congratulations to you both. We are extremely proud and appreciative of your business contribution to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Camila. Congratulations to Claudie's Kitchen and to Bronx Ale House. Thank you again for your contributions to the economic development of the community and your commitment to the ethical business practices and for displaying exemplary business acumen and entrepreneurship. And thank you very much to my colleagues for saying it far more eloquently than I just did.
Well, this concludes our award ceremony. Community Board 8 is very proud of this tradition. We've done it for many, many years. And I want to thank the Economic Development Committee for their work on this, and the Irv Latimer Committee, which is Rob Jaglowski, Lisa Daub, Julie Reyes, Marvin Goodman, Bob Kaplan, have been a terrific committee in reading and accessing all of the nominations and making this ceremony happen tonight. So I can't congratulate our honorees enough, and thank you for joining us. And this is wonderful. And it just seems that every year we're just overwhelmed with the civic life, the civic spirit of members of Community Board 8. So again, thank you very much. So this concludes our ceremony, and you're welcome to stay on, of course, the honorees. In a few minutes, we'll start our public gallery session. And if you need to take a break for a few minutes, now would be it. Whoops.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is really, really special. We appreciate all the efforts. Thank you so much.
Let's do a hand. Our second Zoom ceremony. And the awards, of course, have been snail mailed or hand delivered. So we just love you guys.
Thank you.
So Kira, are the gallery speakers here?
I only see one of them right now.
Okay, yeah, because it's early. We have a few minutes. Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you, Community Board 8. Thank you to
yeah, there you go. Yeah. Nice. There you go. Lori, what was it? Lori oh fuck, what was her last name? Say it again.
I'm gonna
Let the feel out.
mute Dan. Hold on. Okay.
Thank you all for having me supposed to give the award to one of the people. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that, but at least I came on and you mentioned my name. I don't know why I couldn't get on earlier, and I didn't ever get the details as to why this person was being nominated, but I'm sure this person deserved it. So I'm glad that she got it.
Thank you, Marvin. Okay. All done.
Hi, Dan. I have another question to ask you. I was supposed to be part of go online for the aging committee, which you head, and somehow or other I wasn't able to get on. So could you tell me something about how that went?
Marvin?
Yes.
Marvin, it's Lisa. We'll catch up tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
In the middle of the meeting. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk tomorrow. Okay.
Also, Dan will be making a report tonight, a committee report tonight.
Okay, good.
So that will help.
was very nice.
Progress.
So we'll be starting in 5 minutes with our gallery session. Proceed with the meeting.
I see it says we have 65 people online for this meeting. That's a lot, isn't it?
Excellent. That's what happens when you could stay in your slippers.
Okay, Laura, you should know.
I will be right back, everyone. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It would be helpful if you, when you came into the meeting, if you could mute yourself. If not, I'm gonna just try to mute everyone individually, but it would help if you could mute yourself. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm good.
Sylvia, I can see your eyes this time.
Okay, we have 2 gallery speakers, but we'll just wait another few minutes because technically that starts at 7. And I'm sure the board members must be on, coming in as well, who couldn't make the earlier award ceremony.
Oh.
Hello?
Shirley's mom's on.
I can't hear what you're saying.
So, Kira, how are we on the gallery speakers?
Untuckit.com.
Sorry, Laura. We have tens and tens of people coming into from the waiting room, so
Yes, I can
haven't
imagine.
been able to focus
No
on
worries.
that. Last I checked, we had 2.
Okay.
How about Shakespeare?
So much paperwork back then.
You all know in 1973, the U.S.
This is a neighborhood meeting I'm in right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just gonna give another reminder. When you come into the meeting, please make sure to mute yourself. It's like playing whack-a-mole over here and it's getting a little difficult for me. Thank you.
I'm not able to figure out how to private chat.
Okay, I think that there are 2 people on the list missing, but we have a wait list. Is Tomer here, Kira?
No.
No, is Ina Sobel here?
Yes.
Ina is here. Okay,
And
so.
Chris is coming into the meeting right now.
He's
Okay,
coming
good.
in.
So we're gonna get started. It's, hello, everybody. Good evening. I see it's 7:03. And I'm calling the November Community Board 8 meeting to order. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Spalter. I'm chair of the board. We just finished a fabulous ceremony that just fills me with joy. And now we're going to start our gallery session. The first speaker up is Erin McFadden, reporting on the David Prize. Erin?
Okay.
Okay, you're on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm here to tell the residents of and members of Community Board 8 about the David Prize and our ongoing open call. The David Prize is an annual open call for New Yorkers with ideas for a better, brighter city. Each year, 5 visionary New Yorkers win $200,000, no strings attached, to support their work and ideas. The prize is for individuals who would otherwise fly under the radar of traditional funding sources, are approximate to the challenges they're out to solve, and have a true need for unrestricted funding. We want to hear from people who have a big vision for a better New York, people who get things done but haven't done it all yet. Our past winners and finalists are doctors, organizers, activists, entrepreneurs, and beyond. We just announced our second cohort of winners. The prize has only existed for a couple of years, so we're also just still getting the word out about it. Our open call is ongoing now through December 21st, 2021 at thedavidprize.org. We accept submissions in English and Spanish. And if you need other linguistic support, we can help if you email us at info@davidprize.org. Also, if there are any board members who are part of community organizations or just really any organization doing work in New York City that would be interested in hearing more about the prize, including a little spiel like this or a longer presentation, we can do that. You can contact me. I believe the office has my email address and has the information to share about that. And I can also say it really quickly, it's E. McFadden, just like my last name, at thedavidprize.org. We would really love to hear more from the Bronx. We don't hear, proportionately, y'all are underrepresented. And so we really want to make sure we came out to tell y'all about the opportunity. And if anyone has any quick questions, I can also answer them about the prize. I will say that the prize has not existed for that long, so we definitely haven't seen every version of what a winner could be. The most recent cohort of winners are organizers in criminal justice. One has been running an Afrocentric preschool in Brooklyn for 40 years. Another is working on making childcare more work better for the lowest income New Yorkers. And that is only a smattering. So we would really love to hear more from this part of the Bronx. As I said, please feel free to email me with any questions, and submissions are open through December 21st at thedavidprize.org. Thank you so much for having me.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Oh,
Madam
okay,
Chair.
I'm unmuted now. I want to say thank you very much, Erin, and anything you send us, we will be happy to post on social media. It sounds like a very exciting organization. Okay, number 2 is Migdalia Velaz. Migdalia, you're on, speaking on the 6661 Broadway proposed homeless shelter.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of Community Board 8. My name is Migdalia Velaz, and I'm here to address Community Board 8 regarding the proposed shelter at 262nd and Broadway. I am affirming that I and most of my fellow residents of North Riverdale oppose the shelter. As I sat down today to think about what I was going to say, I realized that for once in my life, I felt like I had no voice. The city did that to me and to my community. They did not seek community input, but instead made decisions that would irrevocably affect the safety and quality of life in North Riverdale. DHS awarded a contract to the African American Planning Commission for 34 years, an unprecedented amount of time to award a contract for not-for-profit. In addition, the African American Planning Committee has little to no ties in Community Board 8 and no experience running a shelter of this size with this population. The vendor has also no incentive whatsoever to move shelter residents to permanent housing, as they will be paid per client per day. Currently, Broadway is saturated with several facilities providing housing to special needs populations. At Broadway and 254th Street, the W Assisted Living Facility houses 256 individuals with special needs, including those with mental illness, among others. The new shelter would be a mere 8 blocks from the W. North Riverdale already has their fair share of facilities. We have done our part. We have a disproportionate number of facilities in the area. You cannot walk along Broadway more than a couple of blocks and not pass a facility. I myself have had issues with the W and have had to call 311 multiple times to report unsanitary conditions on the corner of 254, and have witnessed people panhandling and mentally ill residents screaming outside the facility and the surrounding area. Frankly, I don't feel safe walking home in the late evenings. In fact, I walk home with a can of pepper spray in my hat. The city also failed to consider the impact of another large building on the infrastructure in the area of Broadway north of Marshallou. We have significant flooding and plumbing issues. We have heavy rains. Residents have sewage back up into their apartment when it rains, not to mention the lack of transportation, food, social services, medical facilities, and lack of job opportunities in the area. Where will the staff of the shelter park? How will shelter residents get around to much needed jobs and social services? From personal experience, the number 9 bus is very unreliable. To that point, the location of this site is not well thought out or compassionate in any way. It is a means of dumping men as far away from City Hall as possible and just forgetting about them. I moved to North Riverdale to realize the American dream, to own property and then live in a safe neighborhood. But backroom deals and an ill-conceived plan took that away from me. I urge the board today to oppose the shelter and help us maintain the safety and integrity of our community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Migdalia. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Chris Pettit, speaking about parks. Chris?
Hi. I checked in this evening to follow up on my summer address to the board, and I think tonight I want to speak about how much I appreciate how the board and the parks workers and the NYPD responded to my earlier concerns and those of my neighbors. During the course of the summer, I think Rosemary Ginty and Stephanie Ehrlich and the NYPD really put together a thoughtful effort to improve conditions in the park. And I hope that next summer, the progress and the effort that was put in the past summer can be continued and further developed so that the park, can be used, enjoyed for all people in a way that does not cause confusion or disruption or annoyance to people who live around the park. So before I came with a complaint, and I want to make sure that since things improved, I returned, express my gratitude. So that's why I'm here this evening.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's very, very sweet of you. Thank you. It's nice to be appreciated, and I'm sure that everyone will work hard to maintain. Our next speaker is Yesenia Jimenez. Yesenia?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Yesenia Jimenez. I am from the Dominican Republic. I have been a resident of North Riverdale on Broadway for the past 11 years. I am a block away from the proposal site of the homeless shelter. As a member and resident of this community, I oppose of this shelter because North Riverdale already has its fair share of types of these facilities. I understand the homeless community has their needs, but in North Riverdale, we already have a disproportionate number of supporting housing. We have experience with single-man shelter at Van Cortlandt Park Motel a couple of years ago, and it had to be converted into a woman's domestic violence shelter because one of the residents held up a bank on Riverdale Avenue, which is one of my safety concerns of the area. There is an idea that Riverdale is an affluent community. The reality for us in North Riverdale couldn't be far from the truth. We are hardworking people. This neighborhood lacks the resources that the residents of the shelter may need. I am concerned of the ability of AAPC to be able to manage a homeless shelter of this capacity. I am also concerned with the infrastructure and sewage impact on Broadway. Recently, the past 2 heavy storms, multiple buildings in the area had flooded, causing damages to residents' property. I am also troubled that small businesses on 262nd Street will be evicted, which one of these businesses have been in the area for more than 25 years. North Riverdale is a family-oriented neighborhood full of kids, women, and elderly, and a shelter of this type will pose risk to the public and the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Yesenia. Thank you. Also speaking on the proposed shelter is Belinda Hancock. Is Belinda here? She's next on the list. Kira, is Belinda here? If you're here, unmute yourself. All right, we'll circle.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, very good. Okay, go ahead, Belinda.
Hi, my name is Belinda Hancock, and I live exactly a block from this proposal of a homeless shelter. I myself feel this is an inappropriate place to put it. There's no resources here as far as where are these men going to be trained. There's no place here for them to, let's say, seek any kind of employment. The closest and most major places would be like BJ's at 238th or Target at 225th Street for possible stock work. What kind of training will these men have? What kind of professional as far as health, mental, drug abuse of that nature? I don't want to repeat of the CERN Hotel on the Upper West Side. Everybody knows that story, so I don't need to be redundant about it. This would be just a Band-Aid putting on a sore that needs to be stitched. I, for one, I haven't been here long. I don't own, I don't have a condo, I don't have a house, I rent here. Unlike many people here, they have staked their money into making this their home.
Mhm.
I'm making this my home, myself and my husband. I don't feel safe in having this kind of building built here. If you read past news, if a homeless man doesn't feel safe in a shelter, what does that tell you? If they don't feel safe, why should we feel safe? Thank you very much for your time, and I deeply oppose this shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Next is Richard Espinal, also speaking on the shelter. Richard, you're on.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Richard Espinal, and I reside about a block and a half from the proposed homeless shelter site on 262nd Street. And I want to thank the community board for the opportunity to speak tonight, and for the presence of our elected officials and our community leaders. I'm opposed to the construction of the site, and then much has been said about the concerns over safety and fear of rising crime and diminished quality of life, but I'd like to speak about the homeless men and the future of this neighborhood. I have worked with vulnerable communities for more than 20 years, working and providing services to everyone from undocumented immigrants to homeless people. And if there's one thing that I know to be true, is that the same old way of doing things simply doesn't work. This project is more of the same, but even worse. There's a men's shelter on Jerome and Gun Hill. There's one on 168 in Fort Washington. And the largest men's shelter is on East 30th. All those locations have several things in common. They're near the subway, near hospitals and health services, near food vendors, and a wide variety of social services providers. This location has none of that. This site is at the literal end of a single bus line. According to the Census Bureau, more than half of the residents who live in the immediate area of the proposed site have to commute more than 1 hour to get to work. But I didn't need the Census Bureau to tell me that. My wife catches the bus on 261st Street at 6:30 in the morning to begin her 90-minute commute into Manhattan. There are no medical centers. The supermarkets are at least a half mile away. And in fact, the multiple senior residences in the area have to provide shuttles so their residents can get their groceries. And the only restaurant in the immediate area is actually being forced to close because of this project. There are no other providers or support systems in the area. In other words, these men are being dumped at the literal edge of the city to be forgotten. Shelters are supposed to be a stopgap measure to help people get back on the path to stability, but these men are just being stopped and thrown into the gap. Which leads me to my final point, and if anyone is offended, I ask only for your understanding. This project is inherently racist and classist. For far too long, years of systemic racism have impacted vulnerable communities of color, and the fact that over 80% of the single men in the shelter system are Black and Latino is indicative of the ways in which this population has been allowed to fall through the cracks and denied real opportunities to achieve self-sufficiency and thrive. But instead of actually trying to do what has been proven to work, which is to provide permanent, affordable housing, the city and those that support this project want to continue to do more of what hasn't worked, which is to lump men into large congregate sleeping facilities and close their eyes and hope that some make it out. The city is spending close to $200 million to dump these men at the edge of the city, instead of spending those dollars on real housing, with the kind of supports that will put these men onto a path to stability and actually break the chains of poverty for these men and generations to come. And I say generations because this is a 34-year contract. Some people think of Riverdale as a white, affluent neighborhood, and maybe that's true in some parts, but I know that my neighbors are teachers, small business owners, civil servants, retirees. I also know that according to the Census Bureau, the immediate area around this proposed site is majority Latino and Black, and that population is growing.
Thank you very much.
And classist decision would be to ignore the forest for the sake of the trees, failing to see how this area of the Bronx, which is already home to multiple supportive housing projects, is essentially becoming the place where the city puts its forgotten people, the elderly, the disabled, the victims of violence, and the homeless. Slowly but surely, we are being put on a path towards decay. And then they're asking me, my family, my children, my grandchildren of this emerging community of color to carry the burden and expect us to smile. and tell us that this is for our benefit because our leaders were too afraid to demand better. And I hope that this community board can demand better and have the courage to expect more and reject this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. That concludes our gallery session for the public. Is there, and thank you all. Is there a report from the Bronx Borough President's office?
Hey, good evening, Laura. It's Ish Gonzalez.
Hello, Ish.
Office. I hope you guys are doing well. I'll be very brief. I just have a quick reminder to all of the new board members to please submit the EEO form that was sent out to you guys last week. If you can just have those signed and forwarded over to my email address. And additionally, the Borough President's report, the monthly report was sent out to everyone last week. So you can feel free to take a look at that whenever you have a chance. And if you have any questions about anything in that report, always feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here to the end of the meeting, so just let me know if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ish. And I forgot to mention to our gallery speakers that tonight there will be a resolution regarding the homeless shelter later on in our meeting. It's Land Use Committee report coming up, so you may want to stay on the call. Thank you. Do we have any elected officials here? I believe I saw Assemblyman Dinowitz.
And Councilmember Dinowitz.
Hi. Assemblyman, you're on the call? Yes.
Who goes
You're
first?
up.
You can go first. Thank you.
Assemblyman Dinowitz.
Okay.
Who's recovering from knee surgery. Let me turn this off.
I'm going to be brief. Nah, just kidding. I did want to mention a few things. One is I am really excited. The United States House of Representatives passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill a few days ago. Two of our Bronx congressmen, Congressman Adriano Espaillat, who represents part of Community Board 8, as well as Congressmember Richie Torres, supported this legislation. And why am I excited? I'm just going to name two things of probably many that it will hopefully accomplish. My internet connection is unstable, sorry. One of the projects which has been talked about at this board and in general has been the daylighting of Tibbetts Brook, which is a very important environmental project. Some of you are familiar with it. I'm hoping that that project can move forward now that this infrastructure bill has passed. And the second thing, and this doesn't directly affect our board, but it's really a big deal for the Bronx, and that is the proposed capping of parts of the Cross Bronx Expressway, meaning to, in essence, make part of it underground and build parks above it. That would be such a transformative project for the Bronx. So very exciting times. Second, I wanted to re-announce our office's annual food drive that we do every year around Thanksgiving and the holidays in December. For those of you who would like to be helpful and participate, bring all the food you can. I mean, canned food, things that are things that won't spoil. So don't bring milk. But we collect a lot of food and we donate the food to two wonderful institutions that help people who are hungry. One is the Kingsbridge Heights Community Center, and the second is the St. Francis of Rome Food Pantry, which is in the Wakefield section of my district. Third, the Metro van, some of you may take advantage of that. Our offices helped get additional locations for the MetroCard van so that people can fill up their Metro cards. So in addition to the usual places that have been scheduled on the MTA's website, namely Skyview and Knowles Crescent and 231st and Broadway, we also got Johnson and 235th Street added. In my e-newsletters, all the information on that is available. And I just wanted to briefly mention the proposed homeless shelter, because I did speak on it at both the land use meeting and at the Health and Hospitals Committee meetings. And I do want to thank Laura, Chuck, Omar, and really everybody who's put so much effort into this issue. I want to compliment the people who've already spoken tonight because they really summed it up in a very sensible, rational, and appropriate way. I believe that this shelter will be bad for the community and not even good for the people who presumably would be living there. And you know how I try to judge something? When there's a proposal before our community, I say to myself, would I want that on my block? How would that affect the immediate area where I live? And if the answer is I wouldn't want it, then I don't want it on your block either. And I believe this proposal is poorly thought out. It's, in fact, I think cruel, the idea that you're going to put 130 people, and I think it was referenced earlier, the contract with the city, I think we're talking about something approaching $200 million over the course of 34 years. It's mind-boggling to house 130 people. The policy of the city has been a failure, and we should not continue the same policy. There's got to be a better way to help to find housing for people who need housing, and we certainly want to make sure that we do that. But this is just not the way. So I hope that the board will adopt the resolution that's going to be put forth by Chuck Merdler in the Land Use Committee report. And I know we have an uphill fight on this, but I really think it's important that people speak out. And one last thing, and this was also referenced to, the homeless shelters that are in my district, we have a few of them. The city seems to have a tendency to want to dump large shelters at the very edges of the city. So for example, I have one of the shelters that I have in the Wakefield part of my district is up near Nereid Avenue, which is only a few blocks from the border between the Bronx and Mount Vernon. It's a huge shelter, also housing homeless men. Then there's the other shelter up on Jerome Avenue toward the end of the L, the number 4 train, as you approach Jerome and Bainbridge. And both of them have been problematic. And simply placing shelters where they can find space is not sound policy. I think despite the fact that many people have perhaps good motives, I think the policies have been a failure. And I'm just talking not about this administration, but over a succession of administrations. So I do think that we have to continue to address this, and I applaud the board for its role that it's attempting to have. Thank you all.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Thank you for all you do. Are there any other elected officials?
Hey, hey, Laura, it's Eric.
Oh, very good, very good. Eric, please say a few words. Welcome.
Sure thing. Good evening, Laura. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Just a couple of events coming up first. This Sunday, November 14th, we're doing a leaf bag giveaway at the Riverdale Y Sunday Market with DSNY and Big Reuse. That's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our next monthly food giveaway for older adults at 60 and up is at the Riverdale Neighborhood House. That's November 29th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Any events that are coming up, you could find out by signing up for my email list or by following me on Twitter. We had a couple of hearings a couple weeks ago. I chair the Committee on Veterans. I held a joint hearing with the Committee on Immigration that was on October 26th. One of the issues is we recognize in a country that no matter what someone's immigration status, veterans and their families must receive the benefits they deserve for fighting for and defending our country. Many people, folks not born in the United States joined the military to gain citizenship. Donald Trump sort of destroyed that by closing all the offices that made it easier for people to gain that citizenship status, and thus made it harder for them to qualify for certain benefits. So what we in the city do, the hearing was focused on how we identify veterans when those veterans interact with other city agencies, ensuring that immigration status does not hinder our veterans from seeking services, and how Veteran Services can build a stronger relationship with the Department of Veterans Affairs, the federal and the city level. On the 27th, as you all know, I was a teacher and I'm on the Education Committee. And one of the things that keeps coming up, it's thematic at this point, but the DOE providing services for our special needs children, especially the lack of paraprofessionals for our children, busing. We have children in the shelter system who are falling behind and who are not really getting the services that they need. And we did fund a significant number of social workers and community schools, but it is essential that our schools have the funding they need to hire paraprofessionals, provide intervention services for our students who are falling behind in class, and even to ensure that proper social distancing is observed in the classroom. So I have sponsored legislation that'll amend the health code, which will essentially reduce class size and spread children out, or allow for the spreading out of children even more. The next day, a number of you emailed me about this. October 28th, the Civil Service and Labor Committee, we held a hearing regarding the city's proposal to switch retirees' Medicare plan to Medicare Advantage. And I've gotten a lot of concerns about this, and I want to thank everyone who emailed me, and I also want to thank everyone who muted themselves while they're not speaking. So the reason I thank you all for reaching out is because I bring your concerns to City Hall. My questions and the things I bring up to the administration are based on everything that you share with me. There is a court order. I know many of you were concerned because you had to decide whether to roll over to a Medicare Advantage plan or opt to stay into your current plan at a cost of $191, I think, per month. And that deadline has been pushed back to an unknown date thanks to a court order. If any changes were made, this should not negatively affect the benefits you receive or the amount you need to pay and the network that is eligible for you. The final hearing that week was October 29th with the Committee on Small Businesses. We spoke about the vaccine for businesses, or checking the vaccine cards for businesses. And one of my questions, which they don't have the answer to, and it appears that a lot of city agencies don't plan ahead, but children 5 to 11 are now eligible for the vaccine. And they need to start planning now and giving restaurants and families proper notice if they will be checking vaccine status for our young children. So I continue to encourage you to reach out to my office with any concerns you have. And again, if you follow me on Twitter or sign up for my emails, you'll know what committee hearings are coming up. Continue to reach out to my office about areas that need cleaning. It could be litter pickup, landscaping, graffiti. Again, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see some of those before and after pictures, but just reach out to my office. Lastly, the shelter. This is a big deal. You've heard most people in their gallery session speak about this. I've been to every single community board meeting regarding the shelter, have been in communication with over 200 of you who've reached out to my office. And importantly, and am in ongoing conversations with the Department of Homeless Services, along with Assemblymember Dinowitz, as we have been since the very beginning of this process. And as of now, we still do not have any details about the services they will provide or the needs that will exist within the shelter. Other than that, there's going to be 4 to 6 high needs individuals in a room. There's going to be 130 high needs individuals in one space, again, with nothing to be said about the services other than that, oh, AAPCI is going to take care of it. We don't even have a record of AAPCI's success in transitioning people to permanent housing. And these are the types of details that we as a community need and deserve before DHS expects us to be a working partner. I think they expect us to embrace the plan without actually having a plan for us. And so Migdalia, I know you articulated this, but Migdalia and Jasenia and Belinda, Richard, and everyone else who's concerned about this, I want you to know that you do have a voice. I do hear you. Assemblymember Dinowitz hears you. We're going to continue. We're going to continue with this. What we have in our community, what so many of you have are your own stories of folks who've experienced homelessness, who's struggle with mental health needs, or with facilities in the neighborhood. And your concerns are real and they're valid. And the only thing DHS is telling us is that those aren't true. And I think that's wrong, to not take into consideration your needs and your real experiences. And lastly, I just want to say thank you. We had an election last week and I was reelected. So I really want to thank all of you who showed up to vote. I want to thank everyone who communicates with my office. I want to thank everyone for being an active member of our community. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Eric. I want to just a bit of housekeeping. From this juncture on, only community board members will be recognized to speak. Public participation is confined to the gallery session, unlike our committee meetings where the public, engages and speaks. With that, I see Bob Kaplan, your hand is up. Do you have a question for the council?
Yes, thank you very much. And first of all, Councilman, congratulations on your reelection. And I want to also thank you deeply for being such an incredible public servant that really cares about the district and the people in it. The issue of composting, I know that our community board will have a rollout. How can we ensure that the Department of Sanitation, as it rolls out the various different pieces of composting, will give us the kind of attention that is really needed? Because there's so many people here that were really good about it, were very unhappy when it ended, understood because we were in a crisis, but are really ready to regain the work that they've been doing around making sure that our environment is taken care of properly.
Yeah, as you know, composting is something that's very important to me. I think it's important, obviously, to our environment, but it's important to a lot of families. And it's, I say that because besides being a good, so incredibly important for our environment and our systems, it's one of the ways I teach my children about where food comes from and how it gets composted and goes back into the earth. I want to just give a shout out to Enzo, or you'll see him on the list as Lorenzo, from my staff, who really did so much work in bringing composting and working to bring composting back to our community. Because DSNY announced the return of composting, we were all so excited. And then they said it's only available to 2 community boards in Brooklyn. And so what we did when we heard the news was, on a lot of different fronts, we pushed back in the way that they count households. They used to count just single addresses, but we know some place like the Amalgamated, 1,500 units, Skyviews, 1,300 units, is not the same as a single family home. So we pushed back there. We get a lot of people to sign up. The community board, BCEQ, Riverdale Neighborhood House, a number of other organizations. We all co-sponsored events, held community events to get people to sign up. Now, a lot of people think, because they have the brown bins from last time, that they have composting, and that's not the case. So if you live in, I forget if it's 6 or fewer or 10 or fewer units, but you can sign up. So if you're in a small home or a small apartment building, you can sign up individually to collect composting. Otherwise, you have to get your management company or your board of your building to sign up for compost. It's 10 or more for management to sign up. Less than that, individuals in this space can sign up. I encourage each of you to individually sign up. That way DSNY knows and continues to know that this is a need in our neighborhood. But getting the board of your building, or your management, or your landlord to sign up as well for your building, if you have 10 or more units, is the way to get it in your building. Again, if you have the brown bins, it doesn't mean you have composting. You have to actively sign up. And again, if you subscribe to my emails or you follow me on Twitter, you could find those. And maybe I'll just text my staff. We'll re-up the sign up link on my Twitter.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much, Councilperson. Next is the report from the 50th Police Precinct, and Captain Gervin couldn't be with us tonight, so let me welcome Special Operations Lieutenant Soriano. Lieutenant?
Can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. 2 things. Positive news. We do have a decrease of 36% in burglaries year to date in the confines of the 5-0. That's due to the NCOs pretty much policing in the areas where we normally have burglaries occurring. That's a positive news. Another news you guys might have heard, on November 4th, in the vicinity of 109 West 225 Street, there was a shooting. It was all over the news. It was a male discharged a firearm, striking a female that was walking with a carriage. As of today, I am happy to announce that the detectives in the 5-0 have apprehended that individual, and he should be charged sooner or later tonight.
Thank you. I have time for 3 questions. I see Marty and David. Marty?
Yes, I just want to thank you, the captain and his predecessor, as well as all the officers of the 5-0 for the apprehension and information that was provided that led to the indictment of the individual who was smashing up the synagogues throughout this community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, well done. David, you're on.
Yes, Lieutenant, do we have any more information about that incident? What it was? Was there any sort of relationship or familiarity between?
As of right now, we do know that they know each other. We just know that there was a dispute between both gentlemen right now. As of right now, that's all we know.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We'll move on the agenda. Next is Chairperson's report, my chair report. Please refer to the executive minutes, but I do have some announcements. Sunday's Veterans Day event at Memorial Grove in Van Cortlandt Park was outstanding. The Special Committee on Veterans Services presented a framed tribute to longtime activist Herb Barrett for his outstanding leadership in bringing Memorial Grove back to life. It was beautiful, and if you didn't join us this year, I hope you will next year. A few announcements. Jill Towns has resigned from the board. I want to say how grateful this board is for her excellent service and particularly chairing the SCREE committee. Our condolences have gone out to new member Kelly Buford on the loss of her father. And Courtney Dastis Galvin, our board member, has given birth to a healthy baby boy on September 28th and sends her regards and hopes to be back very soon. A few words on the homeless shelter slated to open in 2023. Well over 700 residents have joined our calls to express their opposition to the shelter. We've received hundreds of letters. It is so important to this board. It's been presented at our Health, Hospitals and Social Services Committee. It's been discussed at Land Use, at Public Safety Committee, and the Special Committee on Racial Equity. And it will continue to be discussed because it is a huge issue. It's frustrating. It's been barely 6 weeks between notification to us from the Department of Homeless Services to next week's contract signing. This is a disgraceful process. And the resolution coming out of Land Use addresses this process issue and gives us a blueprint for going forward to what we need to demand from the city. The proposed contract has a price tag of $196 million. $196 million. It is shocking that this mayor has spent over $4 billion and that this is the best they can do, 6 to 8 in a room. It is shocking to me. The provider, AAPCI, was referenced in a recent New York Times article from October 3rd as having been investigated by the city because as he is the chief executive officer who makes over $500,000 a year, supervised his brother serving as the chief finance officer, and also had his sister-in-law serving on the board, which is opposed, is against the city rules. So it doesn't give us a feeling of trust. Unfortunately, we have really very little leverage with the city. Seems that nobody does on this issue. I will testify on behalf of the board. at the mayor's office contract hearing next week. And that's why our resolution is important to give us voice. This is extremely frustrating, and I appreciate all the people who are on the call and who have reached out to us, and we will do our best to represent you. With that, I move on to the treasurer's report. Dia, you're on.
Yes. Hi, Laura. Thank you. Kara, if you could put up the treasurer's report, you should have all received it before the meeting. But I'll just start. So we've allocated 63,434 from our total budget so far, and we have 205,920 remaining for fiscal year 2022. Following that is a table summarizing our progress on the other than personal services budget. Currently we've allocated 7,907 and have 27,113 of our OTPS budget remaining for the year. There are no budget modifications this month. If you go to the second page, at the top is table 1.3 with our purchase orders and accounts payable update. And the update is showing we hold 4,593 in encumbered funds so far. And then finally, our rent and energy budget is maintained separately by OMB and in accordance to our lease, but it's there for your reference. We've allocated 14,181 so far and have 52,991 remaining for the year. And that's it.
Thank you, Dio. I don't see any hands. So we will continue to move on. District Manager's Report. Kira.
Hey, everyone, good evening. For a more detailed report, please review the executive committee minutes where I discussed, different updates from the office. I will share that we continue to get calls and emails from residents regarding the homeless shelter. And we're sending those to the appropriate people, and we're keeping a folder of those. So please feel free to continue to share your thoughts. And lastly, the office will be closed on Thursday for Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Report from the Department of City Planning. Okay, I don't see anyone here on that. Before we begin our committee reports, let's take board attendance. Rob, you're on.
Okay. So starting from the top, Sylvia Alexander. Just stay here.
Present.
Thank you. Constance Barnes Watson.
You can always circle back.
Okay, come back to that.
Yeah.
Bob Bender.
Here.
Kelly Buford.
She's absent.
Okay. Christopher Calhoun.
Present.
Joy Campbell Privatere.
Present.
Sebastian Chittalapalli.
Present.
Courtney Dustis Galvin. No. Lisa Dowd.
Present.
Margaret Della.
Present.
Margaret Donato.
Present.
Paul Ellis.
Oh, he sent a note to the board. He's absent.
Okay. Diamaris Escanio-Bell.
Present.
Moses Sesenia.
That's me.
Yeah,
Asema.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm present.
Asema, sorry.
That's
Thank
all right.
you. I'll
Yeah.
butcher them all the first time through. Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Fanusi. You can imagine my names.
I'm here, Rob.
Okay. Nick Fazio.
I'm here.
Stephen Fruit.
Present.
David Gelman.
Present.
Rosemary Ginty.
Present.
Julia Gomez. Come back. Thought I saw her. Julia Gomez, is that you? Come back.
Julie was on during the awards
Yeah.
ceremony, so we'll circle
Hi,
back.
can you hear me? I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Marvin Goodman.
Here.
Ed Green,
Yeah.
I'm here. Osvaldo Jimenez. Come back. Mira Joyce.
Present. Myra.
Myra, thank you. I always do that. Robert Kaplan.
Here.
Luis Lopez. Come back. Chuck Modler. Theodore Morris.
I'm here, Murder.
Okay. Theodore Morris. Omar Murray.
Present.
Dan Paternak.
Present.
Tracy Pardo. Karen Pesci. Karen Pesci, no. Rita Proctor Lowe. Julie Reyes.
Present.
Georgia Santiago.
Present.
Ramdat Singh.
Ramdot was having internet trouble, Rob, but he was going to be joining in from his cell phone.
Okay.
So we can circle back to Ramdot.
Laura.
Present.
Camelia Nepolis.
Present.
I see. Deborah Travis.
Present.
Stephen Vasquez.
Present.
Sergio Villaverde.
Sergio present.
Marty Wolpoff.
Present.
Go back to the Kelly Buford. Courtney's not going to be here. Paul Ellis. Luis Lopez. Osvaldo Jimenez. Ted Morris. Karen Pesci. Tracy Pardo. Rita Proctor Lowe. And Ramdat Singh, but I guess we'll keep an eye out for him. Okay.
Rob, do you have contents?
Who is that?
Barnes Watson?
Not, okay. Not on the list.
This is only for board members.
Oh, was that a non-board member who just said that? Okay.
No, Constance Barnes Watson.
Constance is a board member. Also,
Constance-
Ramdot.
Oh, yeah. You
Needed.
were early and we missed you. So you were the second one, Constance Barnes Watson. Got it.
Right.
Thank you. Okay.
And Ramdot just entered the meeting.
Just came in. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Okay, sure.
I believe we have a quorum. We have 23. Well, we will continue with the Budget Committee. David, you're on.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad everybody showed up just in time for my presentation. Good evening. As you may recall, last month we had our budget hearing where Community Board 8 voted on our capital and expense budget priorities, which Kira and the office entered into the OMB system and identifying our statement of needs. So we have presented our input for the fiscal year 2023. Excuse me. And so what that also does is create the opportunity for all the committees and members and the chairs to start thinking about budget priorities for the following year. Just to put on your thinking cap in the next 2 or 3 months, and we'll discuss it further in the new calendar year. Just one other thing is that we had a good meeting
Kira and Laura and I with the council member, Eric Dinowitz, last week, where we discussed a couple of budget items that he has managed to include within his priorities. Sort of a different budget, but he was able to identify 3 particular needs that he could address. The repairing of the running track behind the Intech Academy and the public school there. And then dealing with another school at the Amalgamated. I think it was their library and classroom set up there. And the last thing was addressing the concern that has been raised about the wrought iron fence that surrounds the mansion in Van Cortlandt Park. So thank you to the councilman, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Nick Fazio, Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. You all might have heard that we had a tragic fire on Bailey Avenue last Monday evening into Tuesday morning. It was a devastating blow to the merchant corridor that was in the midst of resurgence. Thankfully, no one was killed, although there were reports that a firefighter was injured. So we want to wish that firefighter a speedy recovery and thank the FDNY for their swift action in protecting the adjacent businesses and the residential buildings as well. Obviously, when something like this happens, it's heartbreaking to everyone, but especially to small business owners that have put mind, body, and soul into their businesses. SBS's emergency response unit team was on the scene engaging with the businesses right away. We are working with SBS and communicating with them. And thank you, Kira, for that. We're also working with KRVC to put together a meeting with various stakeholders, including the merchants and SBS. So it's a terrible tragedy. We are going to rally behind the merchants and do anything and everything we can to help them rebuild on Bailey Avenue and 238th Street. On an up note, I was told by DFS that the Banking Development District application for Ridgewood Savings Bank in Van Cortlandt Village is going to be approved, and we are just awaiting the official DFS approval letter that we will share once it is received. So that is an up note. Also, thank you, Councilmember Dinowitz, for the new trash cans on Johnson Avenue. This is quite an upgrade. It looks a lot nicer, and it's definitely holding more trash. So the merchants are very happy about that, as well as their patrons. We are still working on tree pits and getting businesses to adopt tree pits, and Councilmember Dinowitz has expressed his interest in collaborating with us on that as well. Riverdale Main Street Alliance is doing a tremendous job with that, and their businesses have adopted numerous tree pits throughout the district. So thank you to them. We've got some momentum. So if anyone has suggestions, and this has been brought up during our committee meetings and discussion, please send those suggestions to the board office so that we can take a look, and we'll collaborate and see if we can continue with the momentum in refurbishing our tree pits. The vacancy list in Kingsbridge Bid was shared by Catherine Breuer from Kingsbridge Bid, so thank her for that. And it was some also optimistic news. We've got 10 new businesses, 10 or 11 new businesses, storefronts leased up, and very few vacancies left, which is good. Not so good for entrepreneurs looking for storefronts. And just anecdotally, we've leased up quite a few vacant storefronts throughout the district. So that is a positive. We had a great meeting on October 28th. Please refer to our minutes. We continued our permanent open restaurant program discussion with Commissioner Lopez, which congratulate him on his new position. I hope it wasn't me that motivated him to find a new job, but whoever his successor will be, we will continue to work with and DCP on the permanent open restaurant program. We had a great small business owners report by Edu Marmalejos, One Yoga for All, and we had SBS Economic Development Specialist Sylvia Rivera discussing Hurricane Ida disaster relief. That presentation is on our website for any small businesses in the community that it has impacted. Given that our November meeting falls on Thanksgiving, Our next meeting will be on December 23rd. Early Bird Cafe on Mashulu Avenue will be giving the small business report. The Entrepreneur Assistance Center will join us to discuss a new Empire State Development Corporation initiative for small business entrepreneurs that we are very excited about. And Ridgewood Bank will be there as well to brainstorm some economic development initiatives within the BDD.
Thank you,
That's
Nick.
my report, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Sergio, your hand is up. Did you have a question for Nick?
I had a comment that Con Edison, as of yesterday, had still not fixed the box that services all of the businesses on Bailey, even around the corner. That's an issue.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you, Sergio. I will reach out to Con Edison and see what the holdup is and ask for them to expedite it.
Good. Next is education.
Hi, good evening. I want to thank David Gelman, our budget chair, for giving half of my report. However, at our October meeting, we had invited council member Eric Dinowitz to, I see that you're putting the resolution up first. Do you want me to do that first?
Sorry, no, Sylvia. I'll stop the share.
Okay, so Councilman Eric Dinowitz was our guest speaker. We public want to thank him for the amount of budget items that he was able to procure, having only entered the council in April. And in June, he and the speaker did a real bang-up job as far as Community Board 8 is concerned, and the schools and libraries, parks, and such. The track behind JFK, which is used by the many schools that are in that complex, it had been on our radar for the budget for many years. We were always turned down by OMB. He came up with $1 million to fix it, which is outstanding. In addition to the schools using it, the after-school programs also use it. PS 37, which is the front white brick building. Many years ago, I started to advocate for security cameras there, and they're getting it piecemeal, but he gave another $300,000 towards that. He really has his ear to the ground, and he really knows where the needs are. Mashlu Library got money for repair to their roof. It just goes on, and we want to really thank him for listening to us. He had served on the Education Committee, so he's certainly not a stranger to our needs, and he delivered. So it's really amazing, and I want to thank him on behalf of the committee. As far as the SAPO application is concerned, Rabbi Shimtov was also at our meeting, and he had applied for a SAPO application for the Hanukkah menorah lighting on November 28th from and asked for the street closing at West 239th Street and Henry Hudson Parkway from 4 o'clock to 5:15. This has been going on since 1983. The committee voted in favor of it, and I would like the community board to also approve it.
Okay, so why don't we call the question? We see it up here. Okay, well, it was up here for the candle lighting. Is there anyone opposed? Please raise your hand to this resolution. I don't see any hands. Is there anyone abstaining from this resolution? It is deemed then unanimously approved. And thank you, Sylvia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is Environment and Sanitation. Bob Tanuzzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to be a broken record and thank Councilman Dinowitz for his efforts to restore curbside composting to our district. He told you the innovation or the change in policy that his office and those supporting DSNY promoted. So we're really happy that should be coming in November. I also wanted to make sure that the community knew about a great solar energy installation that will be christened and introduced to the community this Saturday. We are invited. It's on Marble Hill Houses at 12 p.m. I wanted to make sure that Ted's committee knew all about that, so I wanted to announce a really good thing happening that Marble Hill Houses is pioneering solar energy. I just have two issues from my last meeting that are going to be carryovers to our next meeting. As you all remember, our committee has been looking into the impacts of Hurricane Ida on the Major Deegan Kingsbridge Heights, Kingsbridge, and the Broadway corridor. And we discussed a series of city reports on the impact. And I've been able to get both the DEP and representatives from the Mayor's Office of Climate Resistance, the authors of these reports, citywide reports, to come to our next meeting. And we'll be able to ask them about the city's responses to the flooding, inland flooding that really destroyed our area for a couple days during Hurricane Ida and in a summer storm. So we are definitely at a turning point in the way that we address climate change. It's important that the city and the community, we all understand how vulnerable we are. The Van Cortlandt Park and the lake represent a basin that receives a ton of water from all over. And I've also reached out to Nick and the business community. I hope will also attend this meeting, as it is really something that's impacted our central business corridor. So that meeting is on November, I keep getting it confused, November 17th. I also want to say that at our last meeting, we discussed the DEP's project for daylighting within Van Cortlandt Park and along the future park, the Putnam Trail extension, the Greenway south of Van Cortlandt Park. And many community board members, myself and Ramdad including, I just have to thank Rosemary Ginty for also raising this, have called for a joint meeting of the Parks Committee, the Environment and Sanitation Committee, to speak about both the daylighting project and the Parks Greenway that is south of Van Cortlandt Park along the property currently held by CSX. So we have got commitments from both agencies to appear in December and the ENS date of the 17th. So we look forward to a really great meeting in December. Our next meeting will be focused on the flooding with representation from the Mayor's Office of Climate Resistance. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Next up, Health, Hospitals, and Social Services. Omar.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I want to thank everyone for coming and speaking tonight. I did get a chance to hear all the concerns, and I want you to be rest assured that the community board is taking your concerns very seriously. At our recent meeting, we had a discussion about the proposed homeless shelter 661 Broadway. Where representatives from the Department of Homeless Services came, and also from the service provider, the African American Planning Institute came. And they spoke about this shelter that they plan to house 130 men. They weren't clear on the screening. They were saying, they stated that the law prohibits them from not turning away anyone based on whatever, whether it be a sexual offender or someone that has a past felony or past misdemeanor. Initially, the board only got 3 pages of report from the Department of Homeless Services stating that this shelter was going to come. So we had limited information, and the presentation that was given to us did not provide much. And over 400 residents came to voice their concerns. On top of that, there was a petition that was signed by over 1,000 residents stating their opposition to this homeless shelter. It's clear that this homeless shelter, this model, is bad for the neighborhood. And, you know, we weren't properly consulted about this homeless shelter. And I do want to encourage everyone to pay attention to the upcoming resolution that is coming from the Land Use Committee. We have since then tried numerous times to get the Department of Homeless Services to come back to Community Board 8 to give a more detailed explanation. They have since rejected them and said that they will come at a future meeting. They have not stated precisely when they do intend. We do know that there is a hearing that's coming up next Tuesday with the Mayor's Office of Contracts, and people are allowed to speak. So I do encourage those who wishing to speak to log on to the website and try to speak. The contract that they have been awarded is over $195 million. That's a lot of money. So I do encourage you guys to pay attention to what's going on. And our next meeting will be tomorrow night, and we'll be discussing COVID vaccinations and the present COVID rate within our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Rosemary, I see your hand is up. Do you have a question for Omar?
I don't have a question. I have a question for Bob Fanuzzi.
Okay.
Yes. So Bob, there's going to be a meeting, a joint one between the Parks Committee and ENS on December 17th, if I
December
understand
15th.
correctly. I'm sorry, December what?
15th.
December 15th, a joint between Parks and ENS. And my question is, will both the Parks Department and the Department of Environmental Protection be making their presentations? Will both agencies be there to present?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I need. I need to know both agencies, joint committee. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is housing. Is Ted here? Okay. Followed by land use. Chuck, you're on. Chuck.
Can run, but you can't hide. Let me give some background here for those members who have not been monitoring events over the past couple of weeks, and for the public. As Omar stated earlier, he has done a superb job at it, has brought in DHS to find out exactly what is going on with respect to the proposed shelter. And some information was obtained, clearly not such important information as the fact that they were going to have a boondoggle of $195 million for this. That's enough for a lot of campaign contributions, I guess. But there you have it, and that's what's going to happen, is that I'm going to have a vote on this sometime next week. Land use had a meeting on the proposal. There was, as one would reasonably expect, a great deal of discussion. A draft resolution was prepared simply and solely to provide focus to that discussion as to the issues that were present. And let me make something very clear. There is a clear difference between the issues that we can address in land use. They are the land use issues, zoning, planning, and the like, and the issues that health, hospitals, and social services has tried to address. So we were focusing on the land use aspect. That resolution and that discussion produced a great division over language, particularly in the whereas clause, with the result that we asked that focus be placed upon the specific resolved clauses rather than whereas, and that we would be authorized to try and redo them before they hit the board. We then had a revised draft for which I thank my co-chairs, Rosemary Ginty, Marty Wolpop, and Dan Paternak, and of course, David Gelman did yeoman work in terms of pulling all the pieces together. At the executive committee, further comments were presented in a robust discussion of various aspects and a recommendation strongly made by people such as Julia Gomez in terms of trying to clean it up, clarify, and focus the issues. Following that, we went to work again to redraft, and in each instance, we have forwarded copies of redrafts to the Land Use Committee and later to the Executive Committee. You now have, and in a few moments, there it is, you will see the latest form of draft resolution. And let me explain to you the various component parts, because I believe in order to get to them, you need to understand some of the pieces. The first whereas clause focuses on what is contemplated. It's already been discussed, and I won't bore you with repetition, except to note that it is highly unusual for contracts of this magnitude, this importance, and this longevity to come in the waning hours of a administration, federal, state, or local, unless somebody is doing it for a reason. The second whereas clause provides that there is, and we have seen it, no sound planning, infrastructure, land use, or like considerations being considered. Not one word has been uttered by DHS to show that it has a protocol for planning, that it has followed that protocol and how, that it has a protocol for infrastructure construction, its utilization and the like, and that it has followed that protocol, or that it has meaningfully reviewed the planning aspects, the land use aspects, and the zoning aspects even, in consultation with either the City Planning Commission, the Borough President's Office, the community, and certainly never did with the Community Board. The third reflects the fact that we have an impact on the Westchester community in that this property, this project is contemplated to be constructed mere feet from the New York City, Westchester County line. Yonkers will be directly affected, and I would hope that in response to the resolution, if it be adopted, that the Westchester State Senator representing Yonkers, the majority leader of the state Senate, speak up both for us and for her own community, whose utilization or ability to effectively utilize Van Cortlandt Park will be adversely affected. Can we move down, Kira? Kira, thank you. The next is that these process failures, the qualifications of the contractor. As you have previously heard, the contractor was the subject of articles in the New York Times adversely reflecting on the nepotism within its entity and the amounts of money that are being passed around within that entity. We've received no financial reports, no indications whatsoever as to capacity or ability. And that is striking in view of the fact that probably the largest homeless contractor in the city at the moment has just filed for bankruptcy. So what we have as a problem, again, is silence and lack of communication. The remaining problems I will deal with very quickly. One, these premises that they are proposing are well over a mile away from the nearest subway. If people are going to go to and from work or anywhere else, they're going to have quite a distance to go to facilitate that, and that's a discouraging factor. The bus service that we have now that has been increased by the MTA at the request of Assemblyman Dinowitz is temporarily, at least, adequate for present needs, not possibly adequate for future needs. And lastly, if I may, that there is nothing shown here about monitoring for security, attentive management, or like requirements. Now, the zoning resolution specifically cautions all of us that a factor in planning and zoning shall be whether or not the facility as proposed, where proposed, can alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which it is located. In perhaps the most eloquent statement I have heard on the subject of these premises, Richard Espinel laid out as clearly as I've ever heard it, the absence of consideration of that question, and showed instead, again, a factor. This property has been chosen near the city line. And skeptics might say it was chosen to get away from the rest of Riverdale and therefore mute comment that was adverse to the proposal. Nothing could be further from the truth. The people of Riverdale are, and I believe will always be, committed to providing for the needy, for those who need shelter and those who need care, but they want to have planning, protocol, and attentiveness in that process. And those were the revised whereas clauses. I'll get to resolves in a minute. We had this revised. We sent it to all of you. We previously had sent it to land use members and the executive committee as it was evolving. In order to comply with Robert's Rules of Order and the edicts of our Law and Ethics Committee, the first step we must take, if you are willing to take it, is to substitute this draft for that which was criticized but adopted, I think with only one negative vote, by the Land Use Committee, and which otherwise would be the only pending resolution before the board. So before I go to the resolves, may I ask, Madam Chair, if I can be allowed to make a motion and then we can discuss it to the extent needed. I would like only to do one thing at this time, to substitute this resolution as a matter of procedure for the one that was adopted by the Land Use Committee. Then we can go into the merits.
Absolutely, Chuck. I just want to mention something that I felt was important that you didn't report on, that you said in the whereas that the neighborhood is already saturated with numerous homes and supportive housing facilities with, the saturation issue. I thought that was important, whereas you just skipped reporting on
You're
it.
right. According to the best estimates we have now, there are between 600 and 700 beds present or contemplated within that area of people in need. They vary in type. And indeed, one of the problems here, not from a land use standpoint, but from a health and hospital standpoint, is the following. There is no attempt made by DHS to separate those who need care for mental disorders, schizophrenia and the like, those who have drug problems, those who have criminal records, those who have findings, conclusions, decisions that they are sexual predators, et cetera, et cetera. Each of those groups of people require different environments, different attention, more security for one, no security for the other. Those are all different things. For whatever reason, DHS has consistently refused to go the mile, to do the screening and to make the process work. And as a result, it's throughout the city of New York, well on its way to equaling San Francisco in terms of the problems that result. Madam Chair, thank you for the correction. May I respectfully move just the substitution before we get into the debate on the merits?
Moving forward, is there any discussion?
As parliamentarian, what Chuck is doing is withdrawing as chair the approved by the committee resolution. So that's no longer on the floor. And he is making a motion from the floor to adopt this one.
Correct.
In which case, I second.
If there's anyone opposed, please raise your hand. If there is anyone abstaining, please raise your hand. It is deemed unanimously approved, Chuck.
We now get, thank you very much, to the resolved portions. Kira, could you just pull, thank you. Let me read them. Bronx Community Board number 8 recognizes and embraces its obligation and that of its constituents, like those of others throughout the city, state, and nation, to provide and facilitate the provision of shelter, services, and care for the needy. That is the first resolved. Second, the elected representatives of constituents residing in the Community Board 8 area, as well as in this instance, the elected representatives of the adjacent Yonkers constituency, are respectfully urged to promptly initiate and press for swift adoption of such legislative enactments, similar in approach to the Padavan law and other measures, as will henceforth mandate that the Department of Homeless Services and any successor agency or agencies, prior to the making or execution of any agreement, understanding, or commitment or expenditure of any public funds, including without limitations, funds derived from the New York State Office of Temporary Assistance and Disability for homeless housing or shelters, or their practical equivalents, to first initiate successive formal 90 or 60 to 90 day review processes of each such proposal and each of its proposed terms, and to request written public comment thereon, A, by the community boards in the proposed premise in which the proposed premises are proposed to be located, B, then by the relevant borough president, C, then by the City Planning Commission, and let me add, they are the ones charged with planning, and D, upon the written request of any member of the New York City Council by the City Council, such review and report to include without limitation the following. 1, whether the location, size, and proposed population makeup are conducive to the health, safety, and welfare of the relevant community, where the oversaturation of institutional or like facilities are or may be present that could have a negative impact on a meaningful community interest, and or whether another or different identifiable location could better serve the broad public interest. 2, the identity and qualification of all persons or entities in any way involved or proposed to be involved in the operation, management, and conduct of the proposed project, including without qualification, their qualifications as fiduciaries. 3, whether the financial or other arrangements made in connection with the transaction are fair and equitable to the City of New York and other public funding entities. And 4, and this is one that has gotten some lightning, whether the counterparty and any officer, agent, or employee thereof, in other words, the entity that would be doing the homeless shelter operation, or of any affiliated entity, has within the 3 prior years made or solicited any political contribution involving any public or party office or entity from any person or entity, and each of the attendant circumstances and amount thereof. Kira? Kira, can you pull it up?
Sorry, I'm muted. Yep.
I need the last page.
Last one.
Okay. Until such time as, this is the 3rd point, until such time as the concerns cited herein are first addressed in a written report by the City Planning Commission, and an explicit finding is made by it following public hearing and due diligence, that the DHS proposal is shown to be consistent with sound planning and community goals, and that there has been adequate opportunity for prior community and community board review and input. Further action to in any way implement same should be deferred. There is a friendly amendment coming to this resolution. Am I correct, Bob?
Yes, it's mine.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
there's 2. I believe Bob has one too, but let me go first. I need to relinquish the chair temporarily to Bob so that I can offer up a friendly amendment. Okay, Bob?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Laura,
Yes.
may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If you don't mind, yours is a critical one, but Bob's is a technical one, which is very, very important to make it read properly.
Absolutely. I will take my chair back. Bob, go ahead.
Bob?
You may have the chair back, Madam Chair.
I'll take it back.
Okay, in the first line, Chuck, as you and I have discussed, I propose a friendly amendment so that it would read, no, this is the first line, Kira, of the 3rd be it resolved clause. That's it. Until such time as the concerns cited herein are first addressed, and this is where I suggest that we add the following wording: by a satisfactory response from DHS. And then it would proceed to say, or in a written report by the City Planning Commission, et cetera, as it reads right now.
Second.
Yeah, I want to leave open, because we are going to continue to engage with DHS. I want to leave open the process of engagement, even though, as I say this, I am deeply skeptical that DHS is going to come back to us with something that will prove to be satisfactory. But in the interest of good faith discussions with them, I think we should allow for that possibility.
Second. So, Laura, we have that amendment. Now you're on with yours.
Okay, I relinquish the chair to Bob. Bob, may I go ahead?
Yes, you may, Madam Chair.
Okay, so then where it says DHS proposal is shown to be consistent with sound planning and community goals, and that there has been adequate opportunity for prior community and community board review and input. Further action to in any way implement same should be deferred, and I add or otherwise rejected, because I felt that we want to clarify that we are rejecting this plan as it is. So.
Kira, this is the third be it resolved clause again.
Yeah, Laura, could you identify exactly where you're inserting that? You lost.
Last three words. It's after.
After the word
deferred.
deferred, David.
It is after deferred. Same should
Okay,
be
please
deferred
repeat.
or otherwise rejected.
Oh, you're just adding those 4 or
That's
5
it.
words. That's it.
That's it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No. I like the word rejected.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Vice Chair, may I ask a question?
You may.
May I respectfully suggest that we take some of the discussion before we vote on the amendments, because they may have an impact.
I'm sorry, Chuck, what did you say?
The question is whether we're going to vote on those two amendments.
Well, if they're friendly and you accept
Okay,
them, I
right.
don't think we need to vote.
I think you're going to need to at the end on both. I think technically you have to.
No, because you're going to present this
Yeah.
Resolution for us
As
to.
amended.
I think you
It's
need.
a friendly amendment,
All right.
and Chuck, if you've accepted both of them as part of this amendment, there's no need to vote yet. The vote-
So Marty, the resolution that we're considering is the resolution as amended by those two friendly amendments, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
I do see some
Madam
hands
Chair,
up.
I yield the chair back to you.
Okay. I do see some hands. I see Camelia, followed by Bob Fanuzzi, Rosemary, and DePretor.
The Prater is not a board member.
Board member. I didn't think so. Okay. I'm sorry. This is only for discussion by board members only. So that's the protocol. All right, Camelia, why don't you begin?
Thank you so much, Chair. I just want to start by saying I'm absolutely appalled of the new information. I'm appalled by the lack of communication from DHS to begin with, but then the new information and the details that Laura commented upon in terms of their management structures and their questionable practices brought me to a new level of being appalled. Having said that, I do want to share with the full board some data that I shared previously with the Land Use Committee, as well as with the Committee on the Special Committee on Racial Equity. And this data is data that I found through honestly simple research, but I think having some numbers would put our conversation not only on this issue, but also in the future in a kind of different perspective. An article in New York Times from 2017 on shelters quotes statistics, which for Community Board 8 says at least 500 people, more people became homeless here than are sheltered here by 500 people. So in Community Board 8, more people became homeless than we were able to host, and these were numbers before COVID. And then another set of numbers, which is as of September 2021, under the logo of Department of Homeless Services, I am very conflicted to share with you that we, Community Board 8, have the lowest number of shelters according to their data in the Bronx at 1. All other community boards have shelters between 3 in Community Board 11 and 10, and 21 shelters in Community Board 6 with a range, 4, 9, 14, etc. So between 3 and 21. And we have one, and we have this prior information from the New York Times from pre-COVID that it was known that we already provide services less than the number of homeless people in that become homeless in our district. Having said that, I absolutely understand everyone's concerns on the location. But my point here is these shelters will keep coming to us because there is a need in the community, obviously. So we as a community board and along with our electeds, we should be much more proactive in anticipating these kind of things. Yes, we don't want this one at that location, okay, but which are our alternative proposals for consideration? Because I know that in other community boards, they were able to communicate with the Department of Homeless Services and switch, maybe not here, but there, because we do acknowledge our responsibility, as Chuck put it, as the first point of be it resolved in this resolution. Having said, we cannot deny this need. It's a question of how we approach this and how we approach the future. And I do have an expectation from our newly elected, well, not so new now, because there are a couple of rounds of council member Eric Dinowitz to scream and shout and ask DHS and all city agencies involved to come to us with proposals way before they sign 34-year contracts. And I don't know how many millions of dollars you quoted, it was over 100 with these kind of things. Because again, we are willing to look and to propose alternatives and work with the agencies to help our constituents, because these are our constituents. If we are against this, again, this will remain an open question. We have to propose solutions or alternatives. We have to be proactive, we have to be constructive, and we have to acknowledge our responsibility to the people that become homeless in Community Board 8. So I just wanted to thank everyone. Also, a small suggestion, if I may, to Chuck and the way he writes these things. I mean, we all admire Chuck's erudite knowledge and scholarship, but if possible in the future, to have the language that is a lot less legal. I don't need to Google what's Padovan law and all this while I'm reading this.
You're an idiot.
Yeah, sure. Of course, I take that insult. Feel welcome. The community, the Bronx Borough President's Office allowed now 16 and 17-year-olds, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ish, if you're still there, to join community boards. So the language should be at a level that should be accessible to a regular person that doesn't have a PhD and a master's and 2 bachelors and speaks 4 languages. So I would much appreciate, and again, remember in our community board, 48% of the population is native Spanish speaking. So I would really appreciate that the language would be a little bit more accessible. It's a racial equity issue. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chameleon. Thank you.
Let me just, may I make a comment?
Sure.
There is much to what you say, but the simple fact is that there were only a handful of people who were willing to spend the time and the energy to help draft, redraft, and redraft this. And where we had the comments, we tried very hard to incorporate them. In the future, if you feel that this is something that is important to you, I would welcome your participation in those labors. Thank you.
Okay, hands Bob Fanuzzi and then Rosemary.
I'm going to go to Rosemary and then go after her, given Rosemary's experience with homeless populations. And I will please return to me after Rosemary's comment.
Okay, Rosemary, you're up.
Oh God, Bob, you're giving me far too much advantage here. My questions are really quite simple. We just voted to substitute a resolution, and in the face of that affirmative vote, we're now faced with 2 additional changes. I want to question those 2 additional changes. Kira, can you put up the Bob Bender, the section of the Bob Bender one? Okay, and just so wherever it is,
I think that if
Here.
Rosemary,
At the beginning and
Sorry.
end of that paragraph that's up.
Yeah, this is it, the last.
Okay,
No,
so
no,
can.
no, that's not. This is the original. Bob's suggestion was in the first line, after the word addressed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob.
Go ahead.
After the word addressed, I think he wanted to put in by DHS. Am I correct?
Let me just, can I speak, Chuck? Are first addressed by a satisfactory response from DHS
Yeah, that's right.
or in a written report, et cetera.
Okay, so here is my question. What constitutes a satisfactory report from DHS? Who is the judge of that? And given the structure of this sentence, if somebody finds something satisfactory, somebody judges satisfactory, after the or, everything else falls away? It all falls away. The rest of the resolve falls away. Is that what I'm looking at? Can somebody please explain that to me?
Yeah, since I proposed it, I'll respond to you, Rosemary. You know that's not how we work. This would be an issue that would come back to the community board for discussion at the community board, just as we've discussed this issue all along. No one individual is going to say, okay, I'm satisfied and resolve the matter. It's going to come back for discussion, and we will determine collectively, as we have all through this process, whether we are satisfied with the response from DHS. And again, as I said, when I proposed this, I am deeply skeptical, given all the history up to this point, that DHS is going to come back to us with something we would find satisfactory. But just the same, since we are engaging with them, we should engage in good faith, and we should leave open this possibility, whether it's remote or not.
All of it, Bob, all of that is fine. I'm looking at the specific language of this resolved. And to me, the specific language says, if the first piece that you put in the first, your piece goes first, satisfactory, DHS, what is satisfactory, who judges it, that's fine, it comes back to the board. My question remains, does that mean after the or, everything else falls away until that is judged? That's what I'm after. Everything else. So written report by city planning, all of that falls away. If your phrase is taken up, somebody judges as satisfactory and brings it back to the board. That's my question. It's a simple question. I'm not saying one, I just want to understand what I'm voting on.
Rosemary, I think that can be remedied by, instead of making and in a written report or in a written report by city planning, make it and or, so that you need to have both. And you've got opportunity in the end of it for prior community and community board review and input. So that still stays alone.
I still am puzzled by it. My last question is on the other one. Should be deferred or rejected. I don't understand that at all. That is, there's deferred and there's rejected. Those are two separate and different directions that the board will be voting on. Can somebody just, maybe I missed the language, please explain that piece to me? Thank you.
Let Chuck defend it right now.
Rosemary.
You can't get muted.
No, I'm not muted. Rosemary, I thought it was a little not clear. So at first I would rather have had further action to, or in any way implement same, should be rejected. But I wanted to keep Chuck's word. Yeah, we're asking that they not implement it, that I felt the word deferred wasn't strong enough. That's why I added that phrase.
Okay, I don't want to make this a debate. I really, Madam Chair, I'm trying to understand the distinction in these words. The Land Use Committee voted on the word deferred. we just, as a community board, accepted a substitute resolution that had the word deferred, and now the word rejected is being put into it. I need to understand what the intent of that word is. Is it's deferred and rejected, deferred or rejected? I don't understand. Just one more time. I apologize for pushing this issue. I do not understand this.
Let me explain why I used the word deferred. I think David Gelman concurred with me in using it. It's the same argument that Bob Bender made in the first part of giving DHS a crack at it. And if you're going to act in good faith, you don't say I've killed it completely. They may actually do something. Of course, pigs fly sometimes, but not here. But it's the attempt to give them the benefit of good faith on our part. That's why we use deferred rather than rejected.
Chuck, I understand your word deferred. We had it in land use. We voted on it. We continue to vote on it. Now there's a change. That's my question. And when it comes to, I understand the intent. I understand people are talking about intent of their words. As a lawyer, I'm looking at the words. What are we voting on specifically? And that's my question. And it's a bit troubling to me because I don't understand what we're being asked to vote on. Okay, so I will stop now. I apologize. Thank you, everybody, for giving me answers. Thank you.
Chuck, how do you want to proceed on this? Do you consider it a friendly amendment?
I think what you have to do is if there are others who agree that it should be either deferred or should be deferred and rejected, if there are others who take the same position as Rosemary, we need to have a vote, in my opinion.
Okay, are there any other comments on this particular piece? I see hands.
Yes, I do.
Okay, is it on this particular piece?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
Bob.
Madam Chair.
No, that was David.
Very simply, if we start with until such time.
I'm sorry, I had asked to be recognized after
Okay, Bob.
Rosemary.
Yeah, I'm sorry, correct. Go ahead, Bob.
Madam Chair, are we commenting or voting on the Bob Bender's, or are we speaking about the main motion?
We're speaking about this amendment, this
All right,
change.
Then again, I will yield the
Specifically.
floor till when we return to the main motion. Thank you.
Okay, we have Marty. Oh, no,
Yes.
David. I mean, you started before David. Why don't you continue?
Yeah, just very quickly. Until such time, it should be deferred, I think, or rejected is simply superfluous.
Deferred or rejected. If you took out or otherwise, should be deferred or rejected. What are you saying, David? I'm sorry.
Since it says until such time, blah, 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 same should be deferred. It makes or rejected superfluous. Why don't we just drop it and remove any doubt?
Any other comments? I thank you, David. Any other comments?
Yes,
Bob? No, we're going back. Marty.
yes, I want to go back to Rosemary's comments. The question that was raised is satisfactory to whom? And I believe that ought to be in the resolution. So it's whatever Bob said, and Kira should probably type it in so that we can see what we're talking about. But it should be, who's talking?
We have to mute somebody.
Sorry, it's hard for me to see when my screen is sharing. I can pull up a Word version of this. I'm just gonna need a few minutes to do that.
Okay, but I think the comment made by Bob which says it should be satisfactory or to be conditional that it's satisfactory to the community board. So it's not just it's satisfactory. There is a point taken as to where it has to be satisfactory. And the idea that comes back to the board, that's exactly what needs to be reflected in that part. And as parliamentarian, since there seems to be some debate on both of these issues, I think that even though Chuck accepted it as friendly amendments, they ought to be voted on independently as to whether or not to add them.
Okay, we could do that. Before we do that, does anyone want to make a discussion or comment on it? Dan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chuck, look, we voted on deferred. I think deferred is the proper statement. I just kind of want to put this in very practical terms based upon the information we were given this evening. This is going in front of the Mayor's Office of Contract Services next Tuesday. There's going to be a public hearing on that next Tuesday on this contract. If this contract is approved next Tuesday or a vote by that body simply thereafter, this is a done deal. So being very practical here, before next Tuesday, this board is, not going to reject, or I don't think that this board is going to have an opportunity to reject, or the city would reject that proposal. So I think what we're really asking the city to do is to defer action here. So I don't see where rejected comes into play. It's something completely different than deferring. So I would go with the original language that you have there, Chuck, deferring, because it makes sense on a very practical level of what we're asking the city to do. We're saying, change the process, make this more transparent, defer this action next Tuesday, and make things more public. Thank you.
Right. I think that I felt, well, they're not going to defer. In our wildest dreams, they're not going to defer. So I was trying to interject something. I didn't realize it would be so problematic, and I'm open to everybody's remarks. I was just trying to make our position, a little bit more stated.
Understood.
Yeah, I
Madam
mean,
Chair,
that was
I
my
would just say-
motivation.
No, I would just say, if that's the case,
Yeah.
then that's what should be presented. It's not an either or. We're either asking the city to defer any, or this board will take on a position. And I think it's one or the other. But for myself, I like Chuck's original language. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Let me see hands.
Laura, before you call on anyone else, I
Yeah.
just want to confirm Bob Bender's language. I don't think I have it exactly how you stated it.
Not right, Kira, it's addressed satisfactorily by DHS.
Okay.
Or use Marty's addressed by DHS in a manner satisfactory to the board.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that, Chuck. That's Marty's amendment to the friendly amendment, and I have no problem with it.
Okay.
Any other?
DHS satisfactorily, by DH in a manner satisfactory to the board.
I see Nick's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is that with an and or an or?
For which are you talking
The
about?
one that Chuck just stated.
I think Marty's friendly amendment was with an and, right?
Let me tell you why I recommended an or. I think what is missing in all of this is to emphasize that city planning, however much some of us, myself included, from time to time disagree with city planning, it is their responsibility, and they generally discharge it well, of planning for the future of the city of New York. And their report ought to be a condition precedent to everything.
Okay, are there any other comments? Chuck, how do you feel about the rejection piece? You think it's,
I
you
think
want,
I have a problem with it. Let me make 2 points. The first one I made before, which is, I agree with Bob, we have to, Bender, that we have to try and show our good faith, and that's why I used deferred. But the other point is this: it may well be that in the event the city goes forward in the waning hours of this administration and acts in a fashion that is both arrogant and disliked by the community, that someone may sue to enjoin this as a giveaway of public assets. And if they sue, you really want to look as reasonable as you can on the resolution. Which is why I would take out the words rejected at this stage. It shows that you gave them a chance.
when pigs fly, but okay, I
agree.
That's fine. I would withdraw that phrase. I felt all the whereases were leading up to a rejection of this particular model. But if it's quite problematic, I'm ready to go on. It's a very strong resolution. It's a very legal resolution. And so I will take away my suggestion.
Let me just give you one comment.
That's fine.
It is my view, I don't expect anyone else to agree with it, that it is reprehensible that 2 elected members of this community, without first consulting with the community, without in any way consulting with the board, have come out in opposition to what is the apparent community board view. Of course, they don't live in the community, and that explains why they don't care. But it seems to me that that is something that is at the root here. At the root here is a failure of planning, a failure to understand planning, and a failure to have protocols. Protocols tell you what's right and what's wrong, and you think about it. Planning tells you what's good and what's bad, and nobody can really seriously fault long-term planning from City Planning Commission. They're the people. There's no indication anybody ever went to them on this, whether this was really the right place. Indeed, the arrogance of it, in my view, is equivalent to a corruption of the worst kind. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, Thomas Burke said. This is an exercise in that. And my point in all of this was, I want to go on record. I think the 2 elected representatives from this community who have undermined the community board, and don't give a damn what anybody thinks, should be excoriated. And I thank you.
Bob Fanuzzi, you said you wanted to speak to the main motion.
Yeah, thank you. And Chuck, you weren't talking about infrastructure votes, were you? No, only kidding. Two points of clarification for me. When you say at the final resolution that this runs afoul of community planning, City Planning Commission principles, were you thinking about, did you have in mind the ZQA or the neighborhood character clause to community use? And if you had something particular in mind, it may be helpful to add that as a parenthetical, but I just wanted to hear your answer to that. And I had a second question about the lightning clause that you mentioned. That sounds to me more like a sunshine clause.
It is intended to be a sunshine clause, but there were people at one level of this that objected to it. I believe that it is high time that any major expenditure of public funds have that kind of a declaration that it's not politically contribution generated.
Yeah, so that was my question. Do you mean that disclosure to be incumbent upon all officials, on the vendor, or only on those who sit in judgment of the particular action?
I believe the vendors must, all vendors must.
Okay.
Disclosures.
All right, is that clear that it's the vendor's obligation that this,
That's my view. I just think,
Okay.
we keep talking.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I support what you're saying. I just wanted to clarify in the text whether this is for the vendor to explain and disclose all their contributions to naming names. Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, and nobody's saying they can't make contributions.
Of course, right. And on the first question, whether you are resting CPC's position on something like ZQA, which came to mind through the eloquent public testimony we heard about how this is contrary to anything CPC has already adopted for their high density planning along transportation corridors, which this does not have, or whether you had in mind the neighborhood character clause.
It's the neighborhood character clause as a standard that applies in varying forms within it. And I tell you something, I have frequently been a critic of city planning. When they set out what they're going to do for the benefit of the city as a whole, they do a damn good job. I may not agree with their conclusion, but they do a thorough job.
I felt that they had gone to great effort to lay out a high density solution for people of all income, and this does run contrary to that. So I wanted to just note that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands for discussion, Chuck, should we call the motion, call the question?
If I may, I'd like to move the question.
Okay. Please raise your hand if you are opposed to the resolution. Please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands. Please raise your hand if you are abstaining. Okay, we see Camelia Tepelis. Kira, you're doing the votes? That's abstaining.
Yes, Camelia is abstaining.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
also abstaining. I can't find my hand.
Margaret
Thank
Della.
you.
Margaret, okay. Then we assume everybody else is approving and this passes. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the discussion as well. Chuck, you can continue.
There was one other issue before the community board and before land use that drew some lightning, which was 318 College Road. Now, that was the place where there were a number of concerns from the FPOA to the proposal. One of them was a concern I voiced as well, which was the idea of putting in this building in such close proximity to the adjoining building was not a good idea from a planning standpoint, consistent with the planning and characteristics of the Filston area. On the other hand, because of the way that city planning and its interpretation of SNAD required the property to accommodate the building. In other words, they couldn't put it in or near the steep slope portion of it. It was inevitable. That said, I asked the FPOA representative to have a conference with the architect, Mr. Dorfman, and to see if they could work out the matter between them. They have had extensive discussions, and late this afternoon, I met with both of them on Zoom, and it's clear they are at an impasse and will go nowhere on this. And the architect's representative has therefore suggested, in order to move this thing forward, that the board vote no on the application, reject the application, so that he may take it to the next step. And I so move.
Do we have something on this on the screen?
No, it
Do
just
we not?
happened about an hour ago. It happened just before the meeting.
Oh, right, okay.
Instead of withdrawing the application, which he does not want to do, he wants to take it to a further discussion with city planning and with other city agencies, perhaps the Board of Standards and Appeals. And therefore, he will accept our vote against the proposal.
Okay, so Chuck, can you just repeat that motion piece?
The motion is to deny with no other language, deny that the application is denied. Period.
Okay, so if there's no discussion, I think
Chuck?
Julie Reyes has a hand up. Julie, your
Yes.
hand is up.
If they were to withdraw the application rather than us deny it, because what they did was incorrect all the way around, I don't want to help them in the least bit. So if they were to withdraw it, would that be better, or is it better if we deny it?
Julie, you're not wrong. The issue is this. The landowner has a view that he has been put upon by city planning. On the other hand, he is somebody who has a regard for city planning's processes, and he wants to take it the next step. It's like the building department. When you file an application, you want to go to the Board of Standards and Appeals, you ask them to turn down the application. They do, and you then go to city planning. That's what this is. And that was accepted by the representative of FPOA.
Okay, so then you're recommending that we deny it then?
Yeah. Just
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Teplis, Camelia, and
Thank you, Laura. Camelia goes, Chuck, with all due respect, why are we voting on something that's not written in front of us? Just a matter of procedure. I don't know if this was circulated or not, but this is not the first time this is happening. In June of last year, we voted on 4 fairly complex land use resolutions, again, with no text in front of us. What is the rush? There was a Zoom call that you just explained to us. Can't be something in writing that we vote next time around. Is there an immediate urgency to this? As a matter of procedure, I object to voting on something that I cannot read in front of me. It's very basic. Thank you.
Next.
Florence, Marty, I'm looking at the screen. You can see I'm fading. Where's more coffee?
Chuck, on your
Marty.
resolution, you said we should just vote no, but shouldn't the resolution say on their application for a variance, we say no?
They don't have a variance application at the moment.
But that was our original, what they came to us in the first place for.
No, they came because it's SNAD. They have to submit SNAD applications to us. That's the only reason it came to us.
I thought it was the 6 inches, but.
Oh, there's more than that. There's a problem.
Bob Fanuzzi.
Mary, to move the agenda.
You're going in and out, Bob. We're not hearing.
To vote to amend the agenda to address a motion not considered in committee or presented by a committee.
I'm sorry, I did not understand your comment.
We've always voted to amend an agenda for
You're
actions that are.
absolutely right again, Bob. You're right. So the motion would have to be, I respectfully move to amend the agenda to put this item, well, it's part of land use report, but okay. Amend the agenda and to vote no on the application.
I second the motion to amend the agenda to include this matter on the agenda.
Okay, is there anyone opposed to changing the agenda? Anybody opposed? Raise your hand.
Camelia, is your hand up from before? Or is that
Yes,
no?
I oppose to changing the agenda based on the resolution not being written.
Okay, so is anyone abstaining?
I
Then
will.
it is
Will
deemed
there,
approved. We voted on the changing. Excuse me?
nothing, go ahead. I
Okay.
abstain either way.
Okay, so now we have,
Laura, may I just add a point to Julie's absolutely correct question? Julie, I would not have done this if the representative of Fieldston FPOA did not say they concur in that, are doing that.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Julie, are you abstaining? Is that what you just said? Either way?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, but that was on amending the agenda.
Right, we haven't
and
taken. a
changing it.
full
We
vote
haven't
yet.
voted on the motion. So we'll call the question on the motion. Chuck, you want to just repeat that one more time?
Motion is to amend the agenda.
No, we voted on that. The next piece.
The motion is that the application be denied, period.
Okay, is there anyone opposed to the motion that the application be denied? Is there anyone opposed? Okay, is there anyone abstaining? We see, you got it?
I
Kira?
see 4 hands: Camelia, Bob Bender, Margaret Della, Bob Fanuzzi, Julie Reyes, Ramdat Singh.
Right, that's what I see.
That's 6.
Okay, therefore it passes, it is approved. Okay,
That's it.
okay, thank you, Chuck.
I think we meet December 7th, am I wrong?
Yes. Okay, law, rules, and ethics, Marty.
Can I ask for a 30-minute recess before we start over now? Okay, forget it. We had a meeting last night of LRE. It was quite extensive and I found it quite informative myself. And we covered a broad range of concepts and ideas. I want to share as much as I can at this time. And I ask all those who are present on my committee or just as the community, if I say anything that's not your understanding, please correct me. Things we discussed were the question of quorum, not the number, but who makes up the quorum. I sent something out in September, but I'll send something out again. Well, next month I'll come back with language. But in order for a committee to meet, in order for the board to, well, the board does the same thing, for the committee to meet, there must be a majority of the appointed members. Members who are community members on a committee do not count toward the quorum. Their votes count, but the quorum is only attained if there's a majority of the appointed members. We had a difficulty, it was my fault. I thought the change I suggested was based on an improper or incorrect quotation from our bylaws. So we'll correct that next month and then come back to the board. We also spent time talking about the fulfilling of midterm vacancies when they come up, based on comments that were made at the meeting and based on, well, I'll say that, we tended to believe that we are finding a cure for a disease that doesn't yet exist. But the question at hand was, it was felt by members of the board, some members of the board, that the timing of the announcement that someone has put their name forward to fill a vacancy somehow may chill other board members from considering or putting their names in. The final outcome, and I'll come back next month with language, the final outcome is that when the office learns that someone has resigned, passed away, or whatever, is withdrawn from their board chair or officer position, when that is known, the office needs to notify the entire board of such event. And then members who would like to be considered for that position, remember the vote takes place 2 regular board meetings following the announcement of such an event. So the filling of the vacancy, so after it's been notified, individuals who would like to be considered for that position have 10 days to announce to the office that they would like to be considered for that position. after 10 days, the board will notify all the members that X, Y, Z, or only X has requested consideration. But then you still have another month and a half before the vote takes place. We focused our discussion primarily on the open meetings law. And I need to inform you that within the last couple of weeks, there have been 4 changes to the open meetings law, which were signed by the commissioner. I will take them in reverse order. On November 9th, reverse order. Okay, on November 8th, the governor signed into law that it's a requirement that minutes be published within 2 weeks after any meeting. The board meeting, or 2 minutes, 2 weeks after the meeting has occurred. So we have done, continue to do a draft of the minutes following the meeting, and then the minutes are not approved until the following meeting of that same committee. So whether it's the board or a committee, you have 2 weeks to get your, we have 2 weeks to get your minutes out. October 19th, the governor signed into law that any resolution that comes before the community board needs to be 24 hours advance notice that such is coming up, so that the community has the right to look at, review, and of course you want community input, so that certainly makes sense. And Camelia commented on this at the last meeting of the Land Use Committee, but the fact is, I wrote to the COG, Committee on Open Government, because I was concerned that there were some issues that were not, didn't make sense to me. Question tonight, whether or not a resolution can come from the floor if you have 24-hour notice required. Second issue would be of concern, would be last night, my committee met. If we had a resolution to present, we didn't have 24 hours in which to provide it. And then such other issues. And I have an extensive letter that I wrote to COG, and the answer I received the same day leans on the concept of what is practicable. And that is, it's not practical for a resolution that comes up at the board meeting to have been 24 hours in advance. It is not necessary. If my meeting was yesterday and I want to bring a resolution today, 24 hours didn't exist. So it's not a hard and fast rule. I'm happy to share and will share in my minutes both my letter and the letter that came back from COG. And one that might really excite people. And I want to thank Assemblyman Dinowitz for not mentioning it in his report. But on September 2nd, the governor signed into law Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021. And that is, I'm not going to read it, but what it says is we can have, there apparently is no sunset on having Zoom meetings. We can continue with this as long as we think it's both preferable and desirable to have them. And of course, our issue is finding a location, and it's becoming more and more difficult for us to get organizations to allow us entry, thanks to the pandemic and the fact that many organizations would prefer not to allow us. So anyone who's excited by that, I share that with you. We are now, again, no sunset. So January 15th is a lovely date, but it doesn't mean that we have to stop having Zoom meetings. I want to mention quickly a couple of other items. In discussing open meetings, we all thought that, I thought that I knew what was meant by the open meetings law, but because questions have come up during the course of the last several months, I wanted to dedicate an entire meeting to looking at it, discussing it, and seeing what we learned and what we need to change. Going back to the response I received on the 24-hour notice, one of the questions I asked is, what happens in terms of wordsmithing? A committee comes with a resolution. It is decided subsequent to that resolution and presentation before the community board that needs some changes. I don't know what the definition of wordsmithing or the parameters of wordsmithing is, but basically we've seen an example of it in the heroic efforts of Chuck over these last couple of weeks. So just to clarify, if a committee has come up with a resolution or with an idea, we want X to take place either by letter or by resolution, then the chairperson personally or the chairperson can identify somebody who would be the gatekeeper to collect input from various members of the committee as the resolution goes through some changes. If the resolution is consistent with the intent of the committee, then that's wordsmithing. If the resolution somehow has changed and it doesn't represent the majority opinion of the committee, then that's not wordsmithing. And that really needs to go back to the committee, or as happened tonight, a resolution from the floor comes, and that a resolution from the floor requires a second. A resolution from the committee does not. So if the person who is gatekeeper in getting this information calls together a group of people and says, let's the three of the 5 members of the committee, let's the 3 of us talk about this, that is a committee meeting. And that should be a public meeting. And if that goes on, then that's out of the view of the public, and that's not allowed. But if individuals provide the gatekeeper with a number of suggestions for changes, then that's allowable. And then that comes before the board. Again, because it's been wordsmith, not because the content has changed. And again, majority is the key word here. Everyone doesn't have to agree, but the majority does. None of us, well, it's not quite true. The board does not have a consistent across the board set of ground rules for public speaking, public participation. Open meetings law allows for hearing, seeing, being aware of. It doesn't require speaking, but if we want a reasonable resolution that represents the community, then they have to speak. But we do not have across the board how many speakers, how much time, what do we allow or not allow. On our agenda for our December meeting, we are going to come up with recommendations for a set of rules for speakers. We have something for our community, for the community board, which people have to sign up in advance. They're given 3 minutes each, and everyone knows or should know what those rules are. But from committee to committee, those rules are not consistent. And so we want to establish that. Wordsmithing, I think I've covered the important things. My minutes will be far more extensive and will have attachments. I just want to repeat that for our December meeting, there are a number of, we have at least 4 things on the agenda. The rules for public participation, how to fill midterm vacancies, language of the bylaws. There's a problem in our bylaws, which now has a conflict. In one place it says only appointed members make up a quorum. In another place it says appointed members and community members. That has to be rectified. The two sentences can't stand side by side. And we're going to have language that says only appointed members for a quorum. And the item that we're bringing up new and we'll discuss in full detail is looking at our bylaws with respect to membership on special committees. It's been requested. I said we discussed it last night if we had time. We did not have time. And the person who requested it wasn't present. So it will definitely be on the December calendar agenda, and we will talk about it then. I thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Marty. Moving on to Parks and Recreation, Ramdot.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Just a quick update. We did have our meeting in October where Parks updated us on 3 capital projects that are being fully funded. The 4 for comfort stations, the Washington Walks Playground, and Classic Fitness. Right now, those projects are being in procurement and then begin construction. We will not have a meeting in November, and we will also have a joint meeting with Environment and Sanitation in December. And that's all from Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Ramdot. Moving along to Ed with Public Safety.
Hey. Okay, so Public Safety had 4 resolutions. I don't know if Kira wants to put them up. We had 3 renewals and 1 new application for liquor licenses. And the renewals were Palace of Japan at 3505 Johnson Avenue, Montezuma Mexican Restaurant at 119 West Kingsbridge Road, and The Hill Bistro at 3541 Riverdale Avenue. These were all renewals for full liquor licenses. 2 were the committee approved unanimously, and 1 for The Hill, there was 1 abstention. And just as a side note on The Hill, there was a little controversy over whether the application was filed properly due to it being a corporate change or not a corporate change. The staff, Bronx CBH staff looked into this and had conversations with SLA and were fully satisfied that the documents have been updated properly and this is a proper application. So, and the other new application was for Casa Tobala, located at 3732 Riverdale Avenue, also for a full liquor license. So those were our 4 resolutions. Madam Chair, can we vote on these together or?
Yes, we could take them all together if that's okay with you. We're voting. Is there anyone opposed to the liquor licenses as presented by Ed tonight? Anyone opposed?
Board 8. Meeting.
Okay. Is there anyone abstaining?
I see 1 abstention, Margaret Della.
Okay. So it is approved. The motion carries.
Okay. So also the Public Safety Committee, we discussed noise complaints about and the closing out of 311 calls before they were resolved. And during the course of the week, I've gotten some emails on similar complaints, and the 5-0 does seem to be addressing these satisfactorily after people have voiced their complaints about these calls being closed out. So hopefully our meeting had some effect on them listening. Also, we discussed the proposed closing down of Rikers Island and what possible effects that could have on the 5 boroughs and our area in particular. We also discussed school safety agents in our area being reassigned and the community concern over school safety. And I guess last but not least, quite a few people came out, even though we didn't have this on our agenda, quite a few people came out to discuss the homeless shelter at 6661 Broadway at 262nd Street. And lots of people were expressing their concerns and consider this project a considerable public safety risk. So, I just wanted to thank Assemblyman Dinowitz and Councilman Dinowitz for supporting their constituents and expressing their opposition to this ill-conceived project. And on the flip side of that, if, you know, Chuck mentioned it earlier, but if people aren't aware of this, Chuck was diplomatic and didn't mention any names, but I will. Congressman Bowman and State Senator Biaggi have supported this project. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, choosing personal ideology over the concerns of their constituents, you know, I just believe community members should direct their concerns to these elected officials. So maybe they'll reconsider their position on this matter and focus on the concerns of the people that elected them to public office. Because, you know, our elected officials are, you know, as far as I'm concerned, are here to stand up for and express the voices of their community. And two of our elected officials are seemingly, you know, at this point going against the wishes of our community. So this was something that a lot of people came out to our committee to address, and it wasn't even on the agenda. So it's very, very high on public consciousness in our area. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. TNT, Traffic and Transportation. Deb?
Hi, good evening, everybody. We have not had a meeting because of scheduling anomalies since the last community board meeting. Our next community board meeting is November 18th. On the agenda will be hopefully wrapping up some of the Sedgwick pedestrian improvements that we've been talking about, and intersection in the intersection of Van Cortlandt Avenue West and Sedgwick Avenue, just safety improvements there. Also on the agenda, Bailey Avenue. Over the last 5 years, 184 people have been injured in crashes on Bailey Avenue involving automobiles. Just to put that into comparison, on Sedgwick Avenue, which has relatively same amount of peak traffic, they've had 13. So it's substantially, you know, the substantial issue over on Bailey Avenue. And so we're gonna open it up to just public discussion and just try to get as many people to come out and kind of hear from the community about that. And then also on the agenda, we'll be discussing the April 2021 resolution that this board approved that was in support of flexible delineators on Independence Avenue. We'll be discussing repealing or recalling that resolution. The reason for that is that over the summer, as I was following up on some of these resolutions and just kind of wrapping up on business from last year, I had a conversation with DOT about logging this resolution to get the work going. And during that conversation, it became clear that the only way to really log this resolution was to request pedestrian safety studies at each of the intersections where we'd actually only requested flexible delineators. I know that during the conversations in the committee, we had been very explicit with the community, and the community had said very clearly that the only treatments that they felt were acceptable were flexible delineators, and that there had been concerns about a lot of curbing, et cetera. And so, in order to kind of prevent kind of unexpected outcomes, I think that I wanted to bring this resolution back to the committee. Well, I can't bring the resolution back to the committee, but to open up a discussion in the committee about recalling or repealing the resolution, because I think that it may have unintended consequences. So we'll be having that discussion at the committee level at the November 18th meeting. And then finally, I just wanted to wish the Bronx Borough Commissioner Navarro Lopez all the best in his new role as the Deputy Secretary for Transportation for New York State. I'm sure he will do a great job. And I look forward to working with his predecessor. I guess his the next person, the person who will be in the role next.
Successor.
Successor, the other one, the other word. It's too late for Latin.
Nothing succeeds like a successor.
All right, very good. So that is all I have. Are there questions? I see Rosemary's hand.
Rosemary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see. When it comes to Independence Avenue and the resolution that this board passed for flexible delineators, I will just tell you, having been part of that issue on Independence Avenue, I know how nobody gave a damn, okay? It was the big pieces of that proposal were gone. The narrowing the street, the bike, it was, and it came down to flex, nobody cared. So, but the resolution was passed and this board approved that resolution. And I think I wrote to you, Deb, and maybe it goes to Marty, how does one undo a resolution of the board? The committee can't rescind it. So again, the discussion, and you're going to go forward and come up with a proposal, but actually, what is the procedure by which the board, a resolution of the board can be rescinded? That was my question to you, to go to Marty, and
Okay.
I still have that question. Not that it has to be answered tonight, but it still remains a question for me. Okay.
No, I appreciate that. So I'm gonna say what I think it is, and then Marty can tell me how I'm crazy or wrong. So, and then, or we can just we can open the discussion up for some at some other later date. So my understanding from reading the parliamentary guide that we're provided is that the committee, because the action has not begun yet, the resolution has not been logged with DOT, that the committee can make a recommendation to the board to rescind it, and then the board can take that up as a resolution.
Yep, you're right.
Okay, so you have your formula. I also wrote to Marty and I CC Deb as to what would the best process for this be. So we all perked up at that, how to rescind a resolution.
Yeah, well, you can't put the egg back into the shell. So the resolution is out there. You can vote to reconsider and forward. And since nothing, DOT hasn't done anything, then hopefully they will consider the second resolution over the first one, but it's up to them.
Well, okay. Any other questions for Deb on this? Dan, your hand is up.
Yeah, Deb, I just, if you could just explain, what do you mean by DOT has not logged our request? I'm assuming they received the resolution already.
Deb? Deb, are you muted?
I think Deb's, it looks like Deb's connection has frozen.
Yeah. Technology, don't you love it? All right, why don't we, I don't know what happened. I don't know whether she's off the call. Why don't we circle back on that, Dan? Is that all right? Let's.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, youth, Julia?
Good evening. I'll try to keep this brief with respect to the time. We had our first meeting in October. We've recommitted ourselves to some of our priorities, and we have a couple events that we are trying to get planned and launched in the late fall or late winter to early spring, including a resource fair and a public forum. I look forward to anyone who's interested coming to join us in a discussion of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. Let's see, aging, Dan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So our aging committee met on Monday. We had a pretty good discussion. Our providers, revealed something to me, which was a little surprising. When I say providers, some of our older adult providers, Julie Dalton of Riverdale Senior Services, let us know that there's no vaccine requirement for, the older adult provider centers. And what's happening, and the Riverdale Y, reiterated the same. So what's happening is some folks are actually afraid to come to the center because they don't know if the person next to them is vaccinated or not. And it was just an interesting point because if you go to a restaurant in New York City, you have to show proof of vaccination. Yet for older adults going into a facility, there isn't the same requirement. So we had a discussion about that. We also learned briefly in pretty big news, the Riverdale Y will be taking over the operations of the amalgamated NORC. That's the natural occurring retirement community. It's obviously the amalgamated is a very big population, and that center serves a lot of folks. So that was fairly big news as well. Our next meeting is going to be the second Tuesday in December, which is December 13th. And we welcome all to come out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Let's see now, moving on to special committees on Hudson River Greenway. Any report from the Special Committee on Racial Equity? Margaret, anything you want to say?
No, I don't believe so. I think we're looking for new members. Our third chair resigned not too long ago. We thank Jill for all of her many years of service. But we definitely need new members. And so I understand that that's at the discretion of you, Madam Chair. But definitely for individuals who have the time and commitment to working on this committee, in addition to their requisite 2 committees, we would welcome a conversation. Ramdad has offered to review some census tracts as they relate to racial equity within our district. And we've also updated the list of racial equity focused work that each standing committee has done over the course of the last year or so. Excuse me. So that draft will be coming around to board chairs, hopefully in the next week. It'll be going to the office tomorrow. And we are hoping that our next meeting is Thursday, December 2nd. We have someone scheduled to come and speak to redistricting, which is a big issue for resources and representation in our area, obviously throughout New York State. But we definitely are having someone come to speak to the sort of the implications to our community. And that will be at 7 p.m. So we welcome all and thank you very much.
Thank you. Bob, I passed you on the agenda. Anything to report on the Hudson River Greenway?
No, there's no report this month. Thank you.
Okay, and then Sergio, Special Committee on Veteran Services.
Our next meeting is November 30th. We just had a very big event at Memorial Grove. I thank Madam Chair, Bob Bender, Dave Gelman, Julia Gomez, who were present for the presentations. It was the last year that our current organizer, Herb Barrett, is putting it together, and we were able to present him with a letter of appreciation from the board, and we were able to get Jeff Dinowitz and Eric Dinowitz to present letters as well. We will be having our meeting November 30th, as stated. We will have the chair of the City Council of Veterans Committee, Eric Dinowitz, presenting at that meeting. So I invite you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergio. Now up to approval of board meeting minutes of October 12th. The minutes have been distributed. Are there any comments? Dan, is your hand up from before?
No, I just wanted to make a point, Sergio, for the special committee, there is a grassroots celebration on November 11th, Veterans Day. Some local veterans are kind of doing their own informal celebration at the Bell Tower up at West 239th Street. So I just wanted to kind of let folks know to the extent they haven't heard about it yet. I think the flagpole was recently restored, and there will be, at 11 a.m. on West 239th Street, an informal celebration or memorial event, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
And let's see. Let's see.
Laura, I just want to, I see Sebastian's hand up. I just want to make a comment about the minutes.
Yes.
Sebastian's votes were not recorded at the last meeting, so we will review the meeting again, amend it to reflect his votes.
Okay, and Chuck, your hand is up.
Yeah, I have a question for Sergio. If a person goes into the Army voluntarily now and serves and gets honorably discharged, does he or she qualify for veteran standing and benefits fully?
No, not anymore. The Veterans Administration changed their policy. So only if you were a combat veteran at this point or a close to post-Vietnam era veteran, do you get the full benefits of VA healthcare, et cetera. And most city benefits, there are business benefits that apply to veterans, but a lot of them you have to be a disabled veteran for or a combat era veteran for.
Let me tell you why I asked the question, because I find that troublesome, that I was afraid that was the policy. There are in the civil service benefits in terms of ranking and the like if you are a veteran. It seems to me that if somebody has made a judgment as a kid, I want to go in, do my thing for my country, and I come out and I've done everything I'm supposed to do, I don't see why I shouldn't get the benefit of that, just because there isn't a war going on for a change.
Well, you don't, well, on the civil service side, they recently passed a statute in the last couple of years that you're allowed to buy back your military time as city or state time. But it's very hodgepodge. There's no statewide or citywide policy that goes across all agencies.
May I suggest that at some point there may be a useful purpose in you're taking a hard look at this, because it just doesn't strike me as fair.
It is a good issue, and we will raise it because we have the city Department of Veterans Affairs, a relatively new agency who's underfunded and has one of the largest mandates of any city agency to look at having a uniform policy, at least for the city. We will raise it. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
You know what? Time must be getting the better of me. I don't think we voted on the approval of the minutes as amended. So we got it. Chuck, I thought that you were talking about the minutes. So is anyone opposed to approving the minutes? Is anyone abstaining on approving the minutes as amended? Okay, I see Rosemary's hand is up. Okay, the minutes are approved. Let's see, discussion. Is there any discussion of the executive committee meeting minutes of November 3rd? Okay, seeing no hands. Miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business? I'm seeing no hands. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you all, everybody, for your attendance, and everybody have a good night. Good night.
I would like discussion on the motion to adjourn.
Shoot me now.
Yes, go for it.
Rob,